Thank you for the email, Jen.
You're welcome.
This is all good, right? Sorry, I have to read it.
Yeah, it's in case you need to refer to stuff, it's just to have it, because the what was sent had the margins in it, it was kind of annoying.
Thank you, and thank you for updating the car thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Thank you.
I serve on the budget commission in Summit County.
Do you really?
It sucks.
Well, then I'm sad that you do that.
Do they do alternative?
Yes, they still are.
As they should.
Yeah.
Which is the way
I'm
to
kind
do
of
it.
annoyed Cuyahoga's not.
No, they do.
Oh, I thought we were getting out of that. Oh, we're talking about the advances, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. That annoys me. We're still doing them in Summit.
No, the alternate tax budget is
Yeah.
the way to go. However it's coded.
Bonkers.
Especially when you're dealing with county.
There's always fun stuff out there, as you know. The term mills really bothers me. The term mills really bothers me.
I'm gonna start using it every night.
You should. Just to get me triggered.
Next time I need to light up.
And another thing.
No, I'm gonna sit there and use it. I'm gonna bring that.
Oh, did you watch that interview? That was good. A little bit.
All right. Good evening, and thank you for joining us today for our committee meeting on June 8th, 2026. We are going to start off with the Environment, Public Works, Planning, Zoning, and Development with Councilwoman Mann. Take it away.
This meeting of the Environment, Public Works, Planning, Zoning, and Development Committee is called to order at 7 o'clock. One item is on the agenda, Ordinance 2626, authorizing requests for RFPs for design services for Lorraine Road project. And we have Structure Point.
Sorry, I'm just gonna do a little
okay.
intro, if that's all
Okay,
right.
certainly.
And then I'll hand it over to them. So this ordinance, 2626 is for an RFP for design of our Lorraine Road project. And about last year, we asked American Structure Point to take a look at all of our studies that we've done. As you know, we've done quite a few. So trying to take all of that and put it into one document and actually make sense of it and actually have a tangible plan moving forward with the project, because we have about $3.2 million from NOACA and ODOT for the project. So we're trying to do it right and trying to do it, do it once and do it right and make sure it's not going to be dug up in about 10 more years after that. So American Structure Point helped us put this all together. So I'm going to hand it off to them. But if you have any questions, just let us know at the end.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Anthony Pizzanelli. I'm a professional engineer with American Structure Point. And I'm presenting here with Ben Morgan, who's a traffic engineer with our firm as well. like Megan said, we're here to talk about the Lorraine Road corridor. There's been a lot of studies that have gone on this corridor throughout the years, and it's really there's been some implementation, but nothing significant. And the city recently received funding, as you guys know, for CMAQ funding to do some signal upgrades. The scope of that, what those signal upgrades could be, are still, could be, replacing some signals in full. It could be upgrading the equipment in some of them throughout the whole corridor. So there's some things that we looked at and just gave some recommendations on to use that money as wisely as possible. City also received urban paving money to resurface the entire length of Lorraine Road from the eastern limits to the western limits. And when we first came on board with the city and talking to the mayor and Megan and the team, our understanding was, we don't want to restudy this corridor. It's been studied a lot. There was, and I'll kind of skip ahead here, but there was a master plan update in 2013. There was a NOACA TLCI planning corridor study that was done. And then there's some safe routes to school planning, along with a few other studies that were, done throughout the years. So each of these studies looked at Lorraine Road. They looked at different things. They focused on different areas. The master plan update was obviously a little bit broader, focused on, some of the things that came out of that study was improving the multimodal along the corridor, improving pedestrian access, called for a stronger downtown identity, adding gateway features, landscaping, and really just supporting the local businesses throughout the corridor in a lot of different ways. So obviously, funding always becomes a consideration, so we couldn't do everything, all at once in these studies. But there is money to be available, and we really wanted to figure out what the best thing to do with that and within the constraints of that funding was. So another study was a 2019 Lorraine Road corridor study, and that looked at that really honed in on the actual typical section of the corridor. Looked at different roadway alternatives, converting a road diet, bike lanes, different pedestrian improvements, and really looked at how can the roadway be transformed. And that's what a lot of what we used for this study was the recommendations that came out of that. And then the Safe Routes to School plan, which was more of a citywide effort, but looked at really, at least as when it came to Lorraine Road, was improving pedestrian crossings, better sight distance, shortening the pedestrian walkways, and just making it a little bit better for students and pedestrians out on the corridor. It's important to note that all these studies included some sort of public involvement. Depending on, which type of study it was different types of public involvement, whether it was a public workshop, open houses, stakeholder meetings, interviews, focus groups, or surveys. So it was all, each of these did include that and documented the feedback from the public. So we kind of went through that, and some consistent themes that came out of that was, as it related to the funding that we have, is pedestrian safety, walkability, corridor aesthetics, and then traffic calmings. And those are kind of top priorities that we saw throughout all three of the studies, especially from the city or from the public that the city received. So, which is consistent with what was done in the alternatives that were recommended out of the 2019 TLCI, and kind of what we'll ultimately recommend as we go through this. So, like I said, the TLCI study is kind of what we based our study on. It broke the corridor out into two alternatives and three segments. So segment one is the western section between the western city limit and 220th. And then that core area there, segment two, is kind of the city's downtown area where there's a lot of business, there's a lot of parking, there's people walking and things like that. That's between 220th and 210th. And then the segment three is everything else to the east. So through the public involvement and through that study, they recommend doing a road diet as shown in that typical section there. So currently there's 2 lanes in each direction and parking on the north side in that segment 2. And their recommendation was to eliminate 1 lane in each direction, put a 2-way left turn lane in, and then add parking to the south side to add additional parking spaces along the corridor, which also will allow additional pedestrian bump outs and things like that at the intersections to make the improve the crosswalks. They also recommended center medians along the corridor in some locations for access management, and also to allow some mid-block crossings, as well as, streetscaping and beautification to, add in some greenery along the corridor, but with those medians. An alternative too was more of a prioritized bike infrastructure, but talking to the city throughout our study, adding bike lanes with this road diet, would likely cause the elimination of parking along there, and in this one to the right, obviously all the parking would be, all the on-street parking would be removed, and that segment 1 and 2 on the left wouldn't allow any additional parking on the south side. So we dismissed this one and really used this alternative 1 here on the screen to move forward with in our study. And our first step, I guess, of the study was looking at the traffic. Can one lane in each direction be removed? What does that do to the traffic? Does it cause backups? Does can cars still make it through in the same time? What are the queues and delays? So Ben will talk a little bit about that.
Thanks, Anthony. Like he mentioned, my name is Ben Morgan. I'm a traffic engineer with American Structure Point. And I worked on this traffic study on Lorraine Road. So our scope of the traffic study was to several things: to update the traffic counts, document the existing traffic signal infrastructure condition. How a lot of times I think you get about 15 to 20 years out of a traffic signal, but anymore there's so much new equipment and technology that traffic signals are capable of. Those things were also just taken into consideration. And then, like Anthony mentioned, a primary feature of our study was to evaluate the feasibility of a road diet. A road diet, like Anthony mentioned, is just taking the existing 2 lanes in each direction and converting it to 1 lane in each direction with a center turn lane. And oftentimes what you see, you all are drivers and all know this, that the inside lane of a 4-lane road essentially becomes a left turn lane anyway, especially in corridors like this where you've got lots of driveways and things like that, and people are always trying to make turns, left-hand turns. So generally speaking, 3-lane and 5-lane odd-numbered roads are better because you eliminate that through lane that people expect and convert it to a dedicated turn lane, allowing them to wait safely to make their turn. So that was the scope of our study, obviously, and then developing the long-term, short-term, long-term recommendations and cost estimates based on the available funding. One thing to consider in terms of the study area, we went from 229th all the way down to Story Road, and in the corridor, there's essentially 3 unique segments, I would say, from West 229th to 220th is really kind of its own segment given the spacing of the intersections. 220th to 210th, like Anthony had talked about in the TLCI study, is kind of that core area of downtown where the intersections are pretty evenly spaced or closely spaced, and that's that core segment area. And then from 210th to Story Road was kind of that 3rd segment within the corridor that we looked at. So the alternatives that we consider within our study, obviously, we're always going to look at the no build, the existing condition. We're going to study that, find out what the operations and of the corridor and how things are currently going, and then we develop several alternatives to compare to those the existing conditions to determine the feasibility, their impact, and so forth. Like we mentioned, the short-term alternative 1, that was the first alternative that we considered. And that one included road diet, but without the center turn lane. It was looking at if we could squeeze the entire road down to 2 lanes in each direction without the center turn lane and still efficiently move traffic, have the on-street parking and some bus pull-offs and other features, the gateway features, but really trying to reduce the cross-section as much as we possibly could. So that was short-term alternative 1. short-term alternative 2 was the same thing except with the addition of the center turn lane, and also turn lanes at key intersections where you might need a right turn lane as well for 50 to 100 feet to allow traffic to process the way that it needs to. And then the long-term alternative was essentially the same lane configuration as the short-term alternative 2, but we did consider some additional things in areas where we found there to be problems that we might not be able to address in the near term. So I'll get into it a little bit more, but specifically the Worcester Road intersection, and then also looking at streetscaping and gateway features, some of those things that were identified in previous studies, as well as shared use path potentially. So those were the alternatives. Our findings. I guess what I'll start with, is the crash data. So along the corridor within our study area from 229th to Story Road, there was 281 crashes in the previous 5 years. There was 1 fatality and a 27% injury rate. But the key thing to note here is the type of crashes. So 50% of those 281 crashes in that 5-year period were either angles or rear ends. And that's typical for a corridor such as this, with multiple lanes in each direction, with a lot of driveways, and a decent amount of traffic. So those are crash trends that, like I said, you would expect to see on a corridor like this. So then in terms of the results, we have our summary table here that you can see. And essentially each intersection gets evaluated like a scorecard, or like a grade card, basically, A through F. And what ODOT and our industry in general determined to be acceptable is an intersection level of service, LOS, of A through E, and then F being failing. So, and that's just a function of how long you have to wait when you're there. And that's what we considered, as we were evaluating each of these 2 short-term alternatives to determine their feasibility and whether or not they would move traffic efficiently up and down Lorraine Road. So, starting with the no build, we found that each intersection within the corridor operated acceptably, although, like I did mention, that Worcester Road intersection, there was, as I'm sure you're all aware, some poor level of service at times. Just given the way that the intersection has to operate, southbound and northbound have to go independently, with all the through traffic on Lorraine Road, that causes it to just have to wait longer currently while you're there. So, as I mentioned, short-term alternative 1 was that section without a center turn lane, which we found to work at most intersections. However, at 210th and at Worcester, in the PM peak specifically, we're found to operate with failing levels of service, meaning there's just not enough lane power there to move traffic efficiently with that cross section, with those number of lanes. So then in short-term alternative 2, which like we discussed, is the addition of turn lanes and things like that, just trying to allow traffic to move a little bit more efficiently. You can see in both the AM and PM peak that acceptable levels of service were able to be met. And with that, that kind of leads into what we'll talk about in terms of our recommendations here in a minute. But at the Worcester Road intersection, that was really kind of the linchpin of the corridor. And what we found was that the short-term alternative 2, the center turn lane, with a single lane in each direction, works up until Worcester Road. And then at that point is where you just need, there's enough through traffic and, like I said, enough side street traffic that you just need the 2 lanes in each direction. And so that's where we had kind of bifurcated our recommendation here, which we'll show in a minute. Anthony will. The last thing I want to talk about is some of the findings for the traffic signals. So like I mentioned, traffic signals infrastructure can go anywhere between 50 to 20, 25 years, sometimes longer. But that equipment usually becomes outdated and it's not supported, and the traffic signal technicians can't repair them. So what we found were specific to the equipment, updating the boxes on the side of the street that tell the lights when to go red, yellow, and green, and then as well as some of the emergency vehicle preemption for the fire and police, and as well as radio interconnect, which is used to establish coordination and progress traffic up and down the corridor, as well as detection too. So we're not recommending to replace the poles, as those can become, those are a significant cost measure in terms of the traffic signals. So our recommendation would be to paint them to try to extend some more life out of the poles as they currently stand. So, Anthony?
Yeah, so as Ben said, we really broke the corridor up into two segments here. Segment one, so remember back in that TLCI study, they really broke it up in the core area, which was 220th to 210th, where that road diet would recommended where it would be. They also said it could be extended throughout the corridor if needed. The downside, I guess, of just doing a road diet between 220th and 210th is, you're going to have a 2-lane section. If you're coming in from the west, you would have a 2-lane section, and then you would neck down into a short road diet, and then you'd go back to a 4-lane section for the rest of the road. So you do see a benefit of the road diet within that section where you put it, better access management, safer, slower vehicle speeds. But based on our traffic analysis, we found that that same typical section could be extended from the western end all the way to Worcester, just giving the benefits of the corridor, the safety, the traffic calming, just those benefits, extending those further, I guess. Now, and I'll talk about this in a minute, the downsides, and I'll get into that, but this is essentially the existing typical section on the left side, which is 2 lanes in each direction with parking on the north in that segment 1 area. And we're proposing to go to what you see on the right side there, which is 1 lane in each direction, a 2-way left turn lane, and then adding parking on the south side where we can. There are going to be many spots on the south where we can't add parking because of driveways or certain restrictions, or maybe it's a potential to add some sidewalk. But for the most part, we would be adding parking on the south where we can, and just increasing parking for businesses. So a little bit of the short-term recommendation, a little bit about a road diet, I guess. The first benefit is it eliminates the weaving, especially in that core area between 220th and 210th. As you go through that corridor, as the left turn lanes develop, you have to taper out, and then you taper back, and you constantly kind of do that at each intersection. So what the proposed section does is it just eliminates all that. It's just a straight through lane. You're providing one straight through lane, and then the turn lane becomes, instead of tapering out to develop that left turn lane, you're converting the 2-way left turn lane area at the intersection into a left turn lane. So you don't have any weaving, you're just changing the striping of that 2-way left turn lane. Road diet also lowers vehicle speeds. The corridor is going to feel tighter. It's going to feel like it's not going to feel like you can go as fast, because parking's going to be closer by. You only have 1 lane. You're going to have 2-way left turn lane, and it's going to kind of change the context of the road from a 4-lane road into a 2-lane that feels like you shouldn't be going 40 miles an hour, more of a downtown feel, which is good for obviously safety, but also just to kind of help build the downtown character. People go slower, 1 lane each direction, more of that downtown feel, kind of a first step towards it. Streetscaping and bump outs and all this other stuff can help, downtown, but this is a good first step, I think. The 2-way left turn lane's another major benefit. Like Ben said, there's 281 crashes out here. A lot of them are angle, which means someone's turning and it's an angle crash, or rear end where someone stopped and someone hit not paying attention or whatever. Rear ends. Both of those are addressed by the 2-way left turn lane by getting the vehicles out of the travel lane. So we're eliminating the conflicts between the travel vehicles and the turning vehicles, and allowing them space to turn. Reduced crash severity, a lot of things that can contribute to that, just lower vehicle speeds, the 2-way left turn lane, things like that. We're adding on-street parking, and then curb bump outs, and the potential for mid-block crossing. So that's going to just improve the pedestrian. It'll help with sight distance. So like you guys already have some curb bump outs along the corridor that were installed. That one on the bottom's at 226 in Lorraine. Essentially on the north side, that would kind of be converted or mirrored, I guess, on the south side of the road. So further shortening that crosswalk and providing a wider sidewalk that'll give opportunity for more potential uses for outdoor seating and businesses to kind of utilize the corridor, more of a downtown feel than just, a 4-lane road. So the main disadvantage of a road diet, although it's still acceptable level of service, it will increase the delay on the side road specifically. So cars will have to wait. There's two things that kind of go. One is the coordination on Lorraine. So as Lorraine's coordinated, it's going to prioritize a vehicle traveling through the Lorraine corridor rather than the side streets. So you might have longer wait times on the side streets than out there today. But based on our analysis, it's still acceptable. It's just, it'll feel a little bit longer. And then also, obviously, you're losing a capacity by losing a lane, so you'll have a little bit longer queues and things like that along the corridor as well. And then, so this is just an example. This is at 226. It's not labeled there, but just kind of what this could look like. The coffee shop there on the corner. What's that? Did I? 214th. I'm sorry, looked at the wrong note. Yeah, 214th. Coffee shops on the corner. So could be an opportunity to add those bump outs similar to that at what was, at 226 there in that picture, and just give some more opportunities for that streetscaping and things like that. And then the parking obviously on the south, so we're able to do that on both sides. So that's just an example of what it would look like in plan view. And then just going through some of the long-term alternatives. These were kind of recommendations that were consistent with the previous studies, but based on the funding that the city has right now, to try to incorporate these into this project, there's just not enough time, and it would require more funding or a lot of local share from the city. So it's things that we think will make a big improvement, and that was recommended in the previous studies, but things that the city, I think, can look at down the road as additional funding and apply for additional funding and try to incorporate later. Shared use path being one of them between 210th and Story Road. Multimodal connectivity was a big theme in the previous studies. You obviously have the Metro Parks trailhead at Story Road in Lorraine. So bringing a shared use path down to 210th, which ultimately connects to what trail on the south side of 210th? The Mastic Road. Yeah, the Mastic Road Trail. So there's just some broader citywide connectivity there. But that does require a new curb, potentially right away, and things like that just aren't able to be fit into this project. And that is one thing I did forget to mention. The funding that the city has right now is ODOT urban paving, which you cannot acquire any right away with. So all the work earned an urban paving job should be contained within the right away. So that's a limitation of kind of what we can do. So any landscaping or streetscaping or gateway features would all have to be within the right of way. And that's kind of what that last bullet point is, down the road, different funding sources, we can look at broader gateway features when we have more flexibility on the project. So, and then the intersection capacity improvements, that's what Ben mentioned at Worcester. It does operate kind of poorly today, so down the road, a roundabout could be a good option there, or additional turn lanes. Obviously, roundabout becomes a right-of-way issue if you can fit one in there. But from a capacity standpoint, it would improve that intersection drastically and allow a reduction in lanes east of Worcester, because you wouldn't need as many through lanes going through the intersection. So something to consider down the road. And then so just quickly on the funding, we included pedestrian curb bump outs as many places along the corridor as we could, where it made sense, where there were crosswalks, where it made sense to protect the parking lane. So if a vehicle's traveling through, the curb bump out kind of protects the pedestrians in the parking, because they would have to drive over the curb bump out to get to the parking lane. Now, though, as this goes into final design, and a more, I guess, final cost estimate is developed, some of those areas could be reduced or eliminated from the scope to reduce the cost of the project. But the 6.6 million shown here includes pedestrian bump outs across the corridor. Like I mentioned, it includes resurfacing the corridor, restriping the corridor, and then the signal improvements at all 10 signals along the corridor. So that, like Ben said, that scope would be repainting the poles and then all new equipment, new heads, new controllers, new detection, preemption, all that, and then coordination as well. So, like I said, the city secured $2.3 million in urban paving and then $1.9 million in CMAC. So, with that, it's kind of hard to see, but right now, the red line on the bottom of this page is $2.4 million. That's the amount that the city can apply for additional funding to cover this cost. With CMAC and urban paving, there is a local match that's required from the city, so that can't be covered by any additional federal sources. It could be covered by OPWC or non-federal source, but essentially the local share right now is 4.4 million. So there is obviously the cost as it stands today would be outside of the total funding that's available. So I think next steps is really to we can reevaluate the scope like we talked about, where those pedestrian bump outs are, and then we'll also look to seek additional funding as we go forward with this. So yeah, like I said, next steps, the city would release the RFP for the final design, look at additional funding sources. Preliminary design would begin immediately after the RFP, a consultant is selected, and then final design would be from fall of this year to 2028, and then construction is actually a spring of 2029. It's fiscal year 2028, so that's incorrect there. But and then following construction, there would be signal optimizations done that basically once the signals are built, all those signals would be coordinated and optimized based on real world conditions. So, that's all I have. Any questions?
I do have a question. So this shared use path, is that what it was called?
Yeah, yes.
Exactly what is that?
Shared use path is it's a multimodal path trail along. It's essentially a 11-foot wide minimum trail that's set 5 feet off of the curb, and it's a multimodal path for pedestrians and bikes to use. So it's basically taking the sidewalk and widening it for multimodal users.
Okay, and that would be from 210 to?
That would be 2/10 to Story, just because that 2/10 was chosen because it's a good connector to the south, to Mastic, to the trail that's being built down there. And then Story, obviously, because that's where the Metro Park Trailhead is. So.
And that would be in place of the parking
sidewalk.
on
the
additional parking lane on the.
So we looked at it both ways. That could be an option to remove the parking, which would require moving the curb in closer to the travel lane, which is a good option, but it becomes very expensive. It's new curb, new drainage, new infrastructure where you're putting that shared use path. The other option is to keep the curb where it is and acquire a sliver of right-of-way along those properties and push the walk outside the right-of-way. So
Okay.
both of those options could be looked at down the road when that is studied further.
Okay.
Or funding secured.
Now, you said that in the TLCI study, that bike lanes, was that recommended by the TLCI? Or was it they had gotten feedback from the residents that they wanted that bike connectivity?
Bike lanes were looked at as an option, just as a improvement to multimodal, really.
Mhm.
The TLCI didn't really recommend alternative 1 or 2.
Okay.
It kind of left it open to how the city wanted to proceed. basically where our kind of discussion was, you know, because of the elimination of parking, we felt that that was in high demand and probably wasn't, you know, something to move forward with here.
That bike lanes were not something to move forward with?
Correct, yep.
Okay. Was the feedback from the residents that they requested that they wanted the bike lanes?
To be honest, I don't know if it was specifically stated about bike lanes in those studies. It was improve multimodal connectivity along the corridor, which bike lanes can obviously do that. The downside of bike lanes is it really serves an experienced rider, right? You don't want to take your kids into a bike lane
Right.
along Lorraine Road. So I think, you know, the multimodal aspect of this and what was identified in Safe Routes to School is, you know, really safety for all users, not just, you know, the bikes, I guess, or advanced biker. So the shared use path is a good way to accomplish that because it's offside the road. And if the parking stays, then the parking almost acts as a buffer between the path and the travel lane. So it just increases the safety to try to get those users off of the road versus keeping them on, you know, with a bike lane. So, yeah, so essentially we do not recommend moving forward with the bike lane because of those reasons.
Okay. And so then from 210, there would be parking on the street, or actually from Worcester all the way out to 229? Was that?
Yes,
That's
that
where,
on the south side of the street. We would
parking
be
on
adding
both
it.
sides of the
Correct.
street?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And there's certain spots along the corridor, like I mentioned, where, you know, maybe parking would be suspended because it's in front of already large parking lots, but instead of parking in those areas, could be a good opportunity for, you know, streetscaping or filling in gaps of sidewalk. So we looked at a lot of different scenarios along the corridor, but essentially, for the most part, it would be parking or some improvement on that south side.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else on council have questions? Yes, Councilman Lang.
So is it possible to reallocate some of the funding that was identified on that last slide to go from the existing signalization? Yeah, there we go. I think back one. Yeah. So the signal improvement dollars, could that money be reallocated in certain areas to allow for the installation of roundabouts and the elimination of signals, which, you know, what's the cost considerations that would go into that?
So the CMAQ application for this project, I think, was specifically for signal upgrades. I do believe it would likely be you would have to reapply to NOACA or get the approval for NOACA to use those for roundabouts. Now, CMAQ funding can be used for roundabouts. It is an eligible, you know, countermeasure. So,
But what we applied for
But
was
what you applied
specifically
for is
for
the
signal
yeah.
optimization.
Yeah. And the other problem is we're trying to line the signal improvements up with the paving. To go to a roundabout almost always requires right of way. So, you know, you'd almost have to push that down the line, you know, do the paving and then come back and do the roundabouts later.
That's something I'll file away for the design part.
Yeah.
Chair?
All right, anyone
me?
else? Yes, Councilman Waring.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for being here this evening. Thank you, Megan and Kaylin, for bringing them in this evening and all the work that you guys have done on this project thus far. I represent Ward 4, which sees a very large portion of Lorraine Road through where you are recommending these changes, 229 all the way to 217. So that's a significant portion of what we are recommending for this road diet. I have a lot of questions because I spend a lot of time on Lorraine Road, whether it's taking my kids back and forth from school or going back and forth from a work event or going back and forth from the Gemini, picking up Chinese food at Cam's Corner. I feel that I know quite a bit about how Lorraine Road works at many, many times of the day. I'm not an engineer though, so I'm going to take my experience and ask you guys questions so that I can better understand how my experience jives with the engineering, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And I apologize for not sending these to you in advance, but I thought of them while you were talking.
Sure.
So the first question is, I saw how you reviewed all of the lights and the levels of service at those lights. And my question, alongside what Councilman Lang was going to ask, I have a lot of lights in my district that are redundant in many ways, but you had reviewed them individually, and so 229 gets an A, and 226 gets an A, and 220 gets a C, and 217 gets a B, and that's great. But I will tell you, there have been times I have been on my way to City Hall, and I have been stopped, not at 229, because I get on at 227. I have been stopped at 226, at 220. I've been stopped at the get-go, followed by the 217. Sometimes I make it through 215, and I laugh, and I go, I didn't get them all, and then I get stopped again at 210.
Right.
And that is not an uncommon scenario anytime I head out of my house and head across Lorraine Road.
Right.
Did you look at those lights for level of service as they work together, not necessarily individually? Because where I grew up, all of our lights were timed so that if you were on the main road, you were on the main road. And you were moving through that. And maybe you got stopped every third light or every whatever it may be, because you do still have to stop traffic.
Sure.
But it was not, in the course of a mile and a half, 6 lights. Did you study them together?
Yeah, so currently the signals out there on the whole corridor are not coordinated. There's no coordination in there, and you can stop me if needed, Ben. But we did analyze the no build as it is today. Not coordinated, correct. Our alternative analysis, alternative 1, 2, I guess for both of those alternatives, that assumes we're coordinating the systems. So that assumes, like what you're talking about, part of the signal upgrades that we would be putting in would include radio interconnect, so the signals can talk to each other and keep like a constant clock throughout the corridor. And then it would include coordination timing for each signal, so they would communicate with each other and work in, so you actually drive through Lorraine. So it's prioritizing your travel on Lorraine. So once you're on Lorraine, after this project, you shouldn't experience that. You will sometimes, because just depending on, like you said, at some point the side roads have to clear out and it'll go, but it's essentially coordinated throughout the system. Now with a coordinated system on the main line, you're prioritizing that movement. So it's gonna have longer delays on the side streets, and that's with any coordinated system. So that'll be the difference between how it operates today versus after this project. Is Lorraine Road will go much smoother. You won't get stopped at every signal, but you might have a little bit longer wait times on the side streets. Did you have anything to add? Good.
No, I think that's it. I think the important thing to note is that the infrastructure, it doesn't currently exist to coordinate them, is what we found, and so that's part of the improvements here would be to, like Anthony says, adding the ability for the intersections to communicate, so you can get that. And I guess one thing too on the level of service, that's while we did study them, in the existing condition as they do currently operate, there are other things that aren't on this summary table here that we did analyze, and that includes stops up and down the corridor. There's other ways to try to study and understand how traffic is moving. And so while you might operate at a level of acceptable level of service, you could see stopping at every intersection if you're not coordinating and going green when they should. So like Anthony mentioned, that's part of our recommendation, and could be achieved here pretty easily. So.
Okay. And I suspect that a lot of the lights in my area were placed for pedestrian crossing and for complaints about level of service coming off of the side roads too. So that's something we'll have to be mindful of, is that we will see increased complaints for those who cannot get out of their side street. And I guess that kind of leads me into my next question. Like I said, I live on 227, so 227 intersects Lorraine at a very, very odd angle. And it is 227 at an odd angle one way, and then 25 feet the other direction, an odd angle the other way.
I think that's where the fatality was.
It was. I happened to see that fatality, and it was horrendous and well predicted based on my experience of pulling in and out of there. But but I believe it was also a motorcycle, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. So that probably upped the opportunity for it to become a fatality. Long story short, there are already concerns about visibility coming off of side streets because of the angle. And then that is compounded by the traffic and the streetscaping that is currently on a lot of these intersections. So whether that is the light poles or tall grasses or planters and potters, there are serious concerns about visibility, where personally, to get off of my street, I have to inch and inch and inch until I'm almost into traffic to even see if there is traffic coming. The idea of increasing parking and making that on both sides of the street gives me quite a bit of heartache in my district. So I guess my question is, did you study adding that and how the visibility and the way that the streets are angled will impact
So
having that, especially with only one lane open? So if you're inching and inching and inching, there will be more traffic in that lane.
yeah, we did not look at like stopping sight distance and those. That's more of a final design task. You know, that would be, you know, if this project moves forward, that is something as the layout goes through in the design process. Each intersection would go through kind of a sight distance triangle analysis to determine, make sure you're not putting anything in that's going to obstruct sight distance. I will say, to that area specifically, we did look at blocking left turn movements off at those intersections completely and making them right in, right out. And which is really the only way to improve those issues without major infrastructure changes, you know, without probably acquiring full total takes or significant right of way or, you know, whatever that requires. There's just not an easy way to fix those angled streets. So we did look at putting a median through there, which would effectively make those, you know, you'd only be able to turn right, or you'd have to go find another way if you wanted to go, you know, eastbound or something. I don't think that's necessarily something, you know, that could always be looked at further in design, but I think that is a hard sell to the public, you know, so.
I agree.
We did have discussions about putting some sort of, like Anthony just said, the issue is safety service, accessibility, can they cross the street in a fire truck, stuff like that. But it is a concern that we did talk about, and it's possibly something we can do in the future. The idea was to basically make it so that you would have to go to a light to go and turn left, instead of looking over your shoulder as you turn into traffic.
That's a major change for the majority of the streets on my
Yes.
side of the city, right?
We understand that.
So when we say hard sell, I mean, that's a hard sell.
So, but as far as the pedestrian bump outs, the stop bar will be moved up. So, on that side streets, most likely the stop, if you're on 227, because you're getting rid of a lane, you're stopping. The stop bar will be closer into
To
the
the
lane
traffic.
because you won't have that outside lane. So, that might improve sight distance. The other thing is the pedestrians. Because if the bump outs are implemented, you will be able to see the pedestrians better than you do now because they'll be out further into the road in the bump out. So as far as sight distance are, those are little improvements that I think will help. But to answer your question, in design, we would not place any obstruction within those sight triangles of somebody trying to turn.
I appreciate you saying that, but they currently exist. So that to me is a hard thing to understand. Regarding that, you know, the other question I would have is there's already some danger spots when it comes to on-street parking. On-street parking is a hard sell for me. I don't understand why we have it. I'm not I'm not required to keep it, right? So the fact that we're adding more, I have to ask a lot of questions. We already have two safety concerns. The first thing is that we have people making U-turns from the eastbound lane to get into those on-street parking spots. So that is a concern of mine. The second thing is that there are people who park in spots that are not spots, up to and including, 15 feet ahead of the line, 10 feet ahead of the line, or in not a spot at all, and it is just the lane, because 20 feet ahead, there are on-street parkings because of the weaving. Our police department does a pretty good job with trying to police that, but you know, when people park that way, it is an issue. Do you foresee that getting worse with parking on both sides of the street? Is that something unique to Fairview that we need to work through, or is that something we see elsewhere?
No, I think the U-turn situation, theoretically, you would have parking on the south side. So a lot of people, you know, going eastbound or U-turning to get to parking because there's only parking on the north side.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they would park on the south side instead of U-turning to go on the north. Now, another thing we would look at is where are the crossings, you know, to make sure they're not then crossing the road to get to the north side. But no, I don't. What was your second part of your question? I'm sorry.
So do you foresee that the parking in spots that are not parking spots, the U-turns, is that unique to Fairview and do you see it getting worse?
No, I think that'll be greatly improved with this layout because like you said, the weaving, you're not going to have a start and stop of lane versus parking.
Okay.
The parking, you will have at some of the major intersections a right turn developed where the parking spots would be. But that can be, it's not a through lane. And I think, you know, with the correct striping, that's usually not a concern when you go from parking to a right turn lane because you don't already have people, it's not acting as a through lane there. So I don't think that'll be an issue. Plus with the addition of the curb bump outs, it will help eliminate people parking in the wrong spots and kind of delineate where the parking versus the travel lane.
Okay. So continuing on the parking questions, I think I have two more about them. Why would we go with parallel? And maybe this is just you picked what is currently existing and that would be a design question, but why would we go with parallel parking as it currently exists and not a head in or rear in so that we don't have pedestrians in traffic and we have better pull in and pull out opportunities?
So there is or angled parking essentially, or pull in angled requires a wider cross section. So instead of an 8-foot parking spot for a parallel spot, it's normally, I think, curved at, I want to say it's 18 feet long, so it's around 15 feet wide-ish. So there wouldn't be enough space within the existing curb to curb to put angled parking on both sides. and
Correct,
keep
but you
through
could
the
do it
lane
on
section.
one
Now,
side.
You could do it on one side and gain some spots. That's certainly something in design that could be discussed and looked at for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. I've heard complaints about like Cam's Corners, so I don't know. I'm not sold on it, but
Yeah.
we'll look at it.
Okay. I just wondered if there was a reason we went with it or if it was just that's what currently exists. So in preliminary discussion, that's what we're going to go with.
Yeah, I think the thought of behind the parking on the south side was to just service some of the businesses on the south side. You know, that instead of having to walk to the north side, you know, it was right there. And plus, you do gain more total spaces across the corridor by going parking on both sides. So,
Okay. Are there businesses in Fairview that do not have rear parking lots along Lorraine? And how many are there? Because I guess my next question would be, what is the reasoning for needing the additional on-street parking? Because otherwise we could keep 2 lanes with a center lane and have a 5 road as opposed to the 3 road. So I'm just trying to understand the prioritization of on-street parking.
It's not necessarily for the parking itself, it's the fact that the reduction of lanes would create a safer corridor. So we'd have space.
Based on speed, that's what we're speed and turning.
yeah,
But so the 3 is safer than 5.
correct. Yes,
Okay.
and slower speed. It forces cars to drive slower.
Okay. And I guess talking about that kind of leads into a great next question. We're going to go from a 35 in North Olmsted into a 25, which currently exists, but you have to lose a lane from North Olmsted to Fairview. And then we're going to get back into a 35 past Worcester and back into a 2-lane. What kind of road rage incidents happen when you've been going behind somebody going 20 miles an hour on Lorraine Road with no ability to get around them once you get to that second lane? Are we creating safety issues once we open the roads back up? Or, and again, I'm just asking the question because I can foresee it happening, but you're the engineer and you study it, right?
Yeah, we have not generally seen that issue with I guess specifically road rage or, you know, major people trying to cut around people and maybe going into the two-way left turn lane. I'm sure it happens. I think the reality is you're trying to get people to drive slower. I mean, slower
Agreed.
vehicles is just a safer corridor, safer for pedestrians. So if they're stuck behind someone driving slower, you know, that's kind of the point, right? But I personally have not heard major issues from going from a road diet or doing a road diet to where there's major, you know, enforcement issues or things like that. So
Have you commuted on one for your job going at rush hour or on the way there or back? I only ask
Yeah.
because engineering it is one thing and living it is another, and I'm just curious.
yeah, yeah, we have driven through road diets. We have several, you know,
Okay.
in Akron and along, you know, the area. And it's also becoming very,
Popular.
yeah, it is. And because of a lot of that's coming from FHWA,
Yep.
there is a push to change context of the roads to make, you know, corridors more downtown friendly, more business safer, slower. So, but I'm not, yeah, I do agree. Like that, you will have that, yeah. So, but you have people driving fast in a 4-lane road.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
One thing I'll add too, in terms of your first question, in terms of progression, we're able to achieve better progression with a single lane with consistent speeds, and so that's another added benefit to them is that a key feature is maintaining what we call platoon, and that's just a group of cars because you get them going at a relatively consistent speed, and you're able to get, you know, that progression that you're targeting to get, you know, timing them to get from signal to signal when they're supposed to be there. That's the whole thing. If somebody can, the signals are timed to go green in 20 seconds from now, but somebody can go 35 or 40 miles an hour, they're going to get there and then they're just going to run right into the red light. So it's timed in such a way that you know, they're supposed to get there at the time when they're supposed to get there, and that's only you know, done insofar as people obey the speed limit. So
It's teaching patience as a virtue, perhaps.
I guess you could think about it.
Rewards good behavior.
And I will say too, I mean, in design, the city, like I mentioned, the road diet does not have to be implemented the whole corridor. It could be looked at, you know, depending on as things get laid out. You know, the core area is really where you want that road diet. You know, that is where it at a very minimum. So, it could something to consider for sure, because that would eliminate, you know, you having driving from the west to Worcester behind someone going 20 miles an hour. But you know, something to consider.
I appreciate that, and thank you for entertaining what are probably some silly questions and some reasonable questions,
No,
but
thank you.
we do have to ask them.
Yeah.
Director Hitch, if I could ask you, the curb bump outs, how does that work when it comes to plowing the streets? And I mean, I've watched it, right? We have the big angle.
We talked very much a lot about that, so it was a concern. I'm sorry, sure. It was a concern of mine, obviously, but it's like anything else. You know, you train your guys to do it properly. You train them to do it right. You train them to slow it down. It's not the most ideal situation for clear and fast, but once again, plow should slow down Lorraine Avenue too, because the faster you plow snow, the more the snow tends to move towards the building. And you want that snow to pile up more essentially on the curb, so it doesn't scatter from the curb to the building. So slowing down the plows on those areas will help greatly also. Now, we may have to come back to some of those areas with a loader and remove some snow if we get winters like we had this year. But let's not hope we have that for a while. But it's just something you have to deal with, you know, and I understand it. And those were my questions, those were my concerns when we were talking about this, but yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for answering that and for entertaining my questions and thoughts. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
I did have a follow-up, if I may.
Councilman Lang?
Yeah. So with the different proposals for, you know, option 1, option 2, or whatever, proposal 1, proposal 2, with the lane reductions, as you were just saying, and it kind of sparked, I know we're going to hear from our constituents about how, you know, oh, we're going from 2 lanes to 1 lane. It's going to take even longer to get across the city. Can you share with us, kind of based on what your studies have found, with the road diet, but also with the corresponding kind of alignment or retiming of the signals for optimization, will you see an increase, a decrease, or no change in the total travel time from the east to the west and vice versa?
Yeah, and that's a great question, great point. You will see an increase, a decrease in travel time. You'll be able to, travel on Lorraine Road in a shorter amount of time, and just by virtue of the fact of having the greens, progress throughout the corridor. So, like I said, there's a little bit of nuance to that because sometimes when you have bi-directional traffic, it becomes harder to coordinate. It's easier when you have a large influx of traffic going one direction in the morning and then coming back in the evening. You're able to achieve a better result, I would say, but it's still possible, and it will still improve the travel time up and down the corridor. And like Anthony mentioned, I guess as a quick way to think about it, where in general your intersection might operate at a level of service B or C on all four approaches, in a coordinated system, your main road would operate at a level of service A, and your side roads would operate at a level of service D. So it takes some of that time that would normally get allocated to the side roads, and then it gives more time to properly coordinate the signals. So you would see an increase, or an improvement, in travel time.
Okay. And as the dubious winner of the Lorraine and Worcester intersection, since that does fall in mine, what is the kind of best possible solution for that intersection? Is it, I know you mentioned in the long term a roundabout might actually be, but in the shorter term, because it is a level of frustration for everybody regardless of which direction you're traveling. It doesn't matter going eastbound, westbound, northbound, southbound. Like going, the worst option is going southbound, especially coming off of Worcester at 30 miles an hour. That can be a lot of fun going down into the metro parks. Yeah. But would it be a speed reduction coming along southbound Worcester to get people to slow down? Would that be an option that we could pursue to kind of calm some of those issues at that intersection? Or is there no good solution and we just have to pick from the best bad solution?
I was going to say, from a capacity standpoint, to improve the intersection, in the short term, there's really nothing to do because it would require adding a significant amount of lanes or roundabout, which increases the project footprint. As far as speeds through the intersection, obviously going east-west this will help. But yeah, I mean, any type of traffic calming or slowing vehicles down going southbound would be a great improvement. We did not look really at anything on Worcester itself, but it's certainly something we could consider if I don't know with the lane width there, if there's an opportunity for some streetscaping or some, the key to driving slower speeds is really changing the context of the road. You can change the speed limit, but people are going to drive as fast as they feel comfortable driving based on the geometry of the road. That's just how it is. So a big push is, how do you change the context of the road to make it feel like people have to go slower? So yeah, could look at, maybe narrowing that section or adding some streetscaping and just kind of closing it in a little bit. So absolutely.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
I know there were a lot of studies that you guys went through. There was no shortage of data to compile, so I appreciate your time and all the effort.
Councilwoman Mann?
Yes, Councilwoman Greenfield.
Thank you. Hi, gentlemen. Thank you for coming out tonight. We did talk about the stoplights. The one that is at the get-go is, in my opinion, a hazard. Is that a stoplight that can be removed as part of this rescaping and signal changing for Lorraine Road?
Yes, it can be considered, yes.
It can be removed from our signal lights that are coming up and down Lorraine?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's an option, yes. I mean, there's other things that go into it, but yes, that could be looked at in design for sure.
Okay, because I can't tell you the number of times I've almost rear-ended somebody because you go not even, I don't know, 20 feet and it's red, and you just came through a green light.
And then
So-
it blocks up 220 in Lorraine.
and then it blocks up 220 in Lorraine. People turn into the get-go. It's quite the cluster. Do you have something to say about that, Megan?
Yes, sorry.
Awesome.
I just-
Hey, Megan, let's
Awesome. Awesome.
We have looked at that, you know, it is recommended that we remove it, but we also have had interest in that grassy parcel. So that's where we hesitate to do anything immediate with that light.
Get rid of it, Megan.
Can
I
we
know.
turn it to flashing
I
yellow
know.
until something happens at the grass light?
I know.
mean,
Yeah,
until
there
they-
you
It's
go. That's an
possible.
option.
It's just something that we're not fully ready to pull the trigger on, just because of the future potential development on that site.
It's still a hazard, whether
Correct.
there's a potential development there or not, and they can simply go around behind the gas station to exit the parking lot.
We've talked a lot about that light.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of the asterisk with that light, is the development.
Okay.
It is
I
feasible.
don't know if that helps. But, that's where we hesitate to remove that light.
Yeah, but there's another way to exit that parking lot. It's not
Correct.
necessary to go out that particular way. You could go out the back way of the of the parking lot.
Well,
So,
and a lot of that is signage, and, you know, that's what we've talked to
Mhm.
developers of, you know, that are interested in that parcel.
Mm.
But yeah, so,
Your concerns have been discussed with interested parties, so
Correct.
that's all I'm going to say on that. And it will hopefully, good or bad, be a future discussion, so.
correct.
get rid of it. Okay. And then secondly, I wanted to discuss this core area that you've designated here as segment 2 between 220 and 210, which really is the heart of Fairview Park. It is our downtown area. And the road 220 and 210 are thoroughways from north to south or south to north. So there's subsequently much more traffic coming in from the North Olmsted side going east to turn right or left on 220, typically to turn right to go to the freeway. And then on the 210 side, there's a subsequently heavy traffic coming up 210 going north. And so that kind of really, that segmented section is really where we have our most restaurants, we have our most foot traffic. We tend to use that section for our parades and all such activities. And I can see where narrowing the street to include parking and bump outs and 2 lanes with a center turn would be very advantageous. Because of what Councilwoman Waring spoke about before, because I live on 227, changing that to 2 lanes with a center turn, I'm very hesitant to support that because it is a very dangerous area because you can't see. You can't see turning out of 229, you can't see turning out of 227, you can't see turning out, well, 229 has a light. 227, 226, 224, all of those streets are jagged, and as soon as you put parking on either side, it's going to be a hazard. So I personally really love this idea of changing segment 2 to slow down traffic that's traveling through the city. But for that initial amount of traffic coming into the city, for that section of Ward 3 and Ward 4, that would be a hard sell for me to cut that back to 3 lanes and put parking on either side. It's too challenging right now to park or cross Lorraine right there, and putting more traffic and cars there would just hinder that, in my opinion.
So if I may, the cool thing about the short-term plan is that after we pave the road, all of these changes are essentially just paint. So if we need to remove parking spaces near intersections, that is totally possible.
Okay.
Okay, because the bump outs would come later, Mayor?
The majority of the bump outs, I think, cement costs a lot of money, so.
Yeah. And then,
Anything else?
I'm good. Thank you,
Okay.
Councilwoman Mann.
Councilman Minnick.
Yes, I'd like to propose one way each direction plus parking on both sides of the street. I think that's the way that's the way it was years ago, and we are reverting back to that. Excuse me, reverting back to that plan.
From where to where? All the way down, Lorraine?
Yes.
And I will say, you know, just as a side note, we did work with ODOT and NOAC a little bit on, you know, future growth on this corridor and what that model looked like. To really understand if you go to one lane now, you know, in 10 years you're gonna need two again. But NOAC's model really shows actually a decrease in traffic, you know, just the way the area is developing and how people drive. The model is actually a negative growth along the corridor. So we do, based on that, we do feel like, you know, any improvement you make now would be functional long term, kind of to your point.
If I may, I have one more question.
Yes, Councilwoman Ware.
Thank you, and my apologies for not asking this earlier. Number one, I did not know that Lorraine Road used to be one way in each direction. So maybe you can answer this, Bill, too, or have some feedback. The number one question when we were doing the 2019 study from a whole lot of people was, how are we going to get the police cars and fire trucks through from point A to point B? So clearly we did it at one point if we used to be this way, but can you tell us a little bit about how this works with emergency vehicles, just so that we know how to talk to our constituents, knowing that that was a major question?
Sure. Yeah. The signals will add. You can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So part of the traffic signal infrastructure that we're recommending to be installed is emergency vehicle preemption system, and so that, you know, essentially gives priority and the ability for fire and police, and can even be for, as we were talking about, the snow plows. There's another community that I've worked with down in Summit County that has preemption for their snow plows, and just allows that progression for the signals to know that those vehicles are coming.
And in addition, I think one of the things with the TLCI studies, they were proposing center medians along the road in a lot of different places. We're not necessarily recommending to construct those at this point, you know, from a cost standpoint and some other things. So the two-way left turn lane will be available for, you know, safety services, plows to go once those, you know, and those signals will be green as they go through because of the new preemptions.
So police and fire were brought into the conversation at multiple points, and the fact is we're going to have the same amount of pavement.
Okay.
Yeah, so they can drive around.
Thank you for answering that question, because I know we're
Councilwoman
going to
Mann.
get that.
Yeah,
Yes, Councilwoman Green.
yeah, thank you, Councilwoman Mann. So one other thing, yeah, we do have Fairview Park Hospital right at the end of at the border of our city. So there is a lot of traffic with the hospital and ambulances coming up to North Olmsted or to Fairview Park, up and down Lorraine. So it is a thorough way for our emergency services. So center median
median,
is totally not an option. That would completely derail that system. Thank you, Councilwoman Mann.
Anybody else?
I have one final, if I may.
Yes, Councilwoman.
I do apologize for, you said something that kind of sparked another thought, and that was this showed an overall capacity decrease need. Is that correct? A decrease in usage over time? Did I interpret that correctly?
The model, yes.
So Lorraine Road Corridor, if I'm not mistaken, is now both a TOD overlay district and a mixed-use development overlay district. As those types of projects start to become implemented, that will, I'm going to assume, have a corollary effect on capacity. How would any of the plans as proposed accommodate for any future growth where density became greater rather than less?
We did not analyze. We used a 0% growth.
And I know that was a recent development.
If I may, and Megan can probably talk about this a lot more, the TOD zoning overlay district is essentially a lot of the parcels would have fewer parking spaces if they chose to go with the TOD zoning law. In fact, it's actually built around more walkability. So it's sort of built for a future where we don't have as much traffic.
Any more questions?
I guess I have a question. Where's the traffic going? Like, I mean, if traffic is decreasing, is it because people are not on the road? Is it because people are moving to other parts of the city? Is it because the highways have taken over?
So
like, it's a silly question, but where are they going?
my opinion, because I've heard it many times said on the news, and I've heard it in other groups as well. The younger generation is not purchasing vehicles; they're using ride sharing more. The baby boomers are that large population bump that we had with baby boomers is essentially they're passing away. We may see a population decrease. They're actually talking about a population decrease around the world because we just have fewer people having kids. So the reality is that, we're probably going to have fewer people purchasing vehicles and fewer people in general.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate knowing that that's more the global as opposed to like Fairview Park in and of itself is, not going to see people.
That's what they tell me. Next week it'll be the Ice Age is coming back.
No worries. All right. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Okay, and I have one more question. So the option, 1, 2, 3, where we're going down to one lane in each direction with the turn lane, that road diet is calm traffic and make the road safer. Is that core area where it was originally proposed to do that? Is that where these 280 accidents or crashes are, concentrated? Or, does the data show that we should be going down to 1 in segment 1 and segment 3?
Yeah, so the 281 crashes were out throughout the entirety of the corridor, so from 229 all the way to Story. We didn't deep dive, necessarily into how much occur, in one segment.
But that is something that we can easily do, and in design that can be looked at, and probably further evaluated to make sure a road diet's warranted the whole way, or additional reason for that warrant. So
Okay, if that's the purpose
Yeah.
for going down to
likely,
one lane.
intuitively, without looking at the data, I do believe it's not concentrated to the core area. I
Okay.
think that eastern section the western section down by 229th to 220th is probably where more of them, or just as many of them, is in the core. It is,
Okay.
for different reasons potentially, but yeah.
Okay. And Mayor or Megan, will you be advising the public and council when you decide which option you're going with and along what segments?
Yes, so that's exactly what this ordinance is for. I think 2626 is to go through the final, go through design. This is all preliminary.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where, yes, you guys will be, informed, presented, as we go down that process of the final design.
So the designer will decide what is best?
Yeah, we'll work with them, they'll look at this, and then, make decisions as we move along that process.
Okay. Because it reaches a certain point where it's decided and no more input will be taken.
Yeah, well, that's where the design process will evolve,
Mhm.
with input. I think to their point of looking at all these studies, looking at the public input, I think we can find creative ways of doing something different than what we've done in the past.
Mhm.
But again, we'll look at that as we move through this design process.
Okay. All right. Well,
Chair, if I may.
oh, yes.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's all right. Go ahead. Council.
Before you make a motion, I just wanted to say that I kind of feel where Councilwoman Mann was going about the whole input thing. If this passes and it goes to RFP and we do the design, I think it would probably be prudent to bring maybe mid-design back to
Yep, for sure,
council.
for sure.
Here, before it gets too far down the line, because there's still a lot of if here. So it would just be my recommendation and suggestion to bring it back so that we can give you what we've been hearing, especially knowing that this is going to be the first time out to the public in a very long time about it. And then also allow for council to weigh in as well on, how we believe it will impact our wards. So just wanted to voice out loud, if you
Yeah.
could bring it to us before that card is finally
For sure.
out
And
the
I
door.
think, especially with the funding that we have, it's just trying to do it the right way.
100%, and I appreciate that effort, so thank you. Thank you, Chair, for the extra second.
And Director Dever, you had a
Just
question?
one thing, this council is going to get legislation next week on e-bikes, which will cover scooters, will cover skateboards, will cover a whole bunch of things. And trying to do things right is the future best practices for bike lanes.
I
that
would
where
not
we're-
say it's the best practice to put in bike lanes. I think it's very dependent on the corridor itself and how it's being utilized. I think if there's a lot of commuter bike traffic, if there's a lot of people riding from work to home and going back and forth, then bike lanes make sense. Downtown Cleveland, things like that, where people are biking a lot. Here, based on what we saw from the public, it's not just that commuter bike traffic. It's residents, it's kids, it's people walking to school. So I don't think it's a best practice to put in a bike lane. I think there's no engineering judgment of one.
Yeah, I'm just as looking at it, the more and more the proliferation of these e-bikes. You got to get them off the sidewalk if you're going 30 miles an hour, and they seem to be hot sellers right now. Is it something we're going to have to deal with going forward?
Yeah, I would say, yeah. I mean, that is an advantage of the bike lane. I mean, if there's a high density of e-bikes, it would be best practice to put them in a bike lane.
Thank you.
Well, they shouldn't be going 35 in a bike lane.
That's speeding on Marine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Or 20.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hearing no further questions, then, I move that we put ordinance 2626 up for third read and final passage.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Councilman Lang.
I got one.
Yes.
Councilman Minnick.
Yes.
Councilwoman Greenfield.
Yes.
Council President King.
Yes.
Councilwoman Waring.
Yes.
Councilman Rayleigh.
Yes.
And Councilwoman Mann, I will vote yes, and the motion passes unanimously. The Environment, Public Works, Planning, Zoning, and Development Committee adjourns at 8:19.
Great, thank you. Thank you all for coming out tonight and presenting that. That was really a wonderful presentation. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Next up is Finance and Councilwoman Greenfield.
Thank you, Council President. The Finance Committee meeting begins at 8:23 p.m. And first up for discussion is the ordinance 2637. And I believe the ASME agreement. And we have Attorney John Delano present to discuss it.
Good to go? Good evening, everyone. Learned more about suburban traffic in this last hour than I've learned in my entire lifetime. So it's beneficial. All right, so I'm here to just give you kind of a summary about the ASME contract. As you probably now know, we were engaged in negotiations for quite a number of months, quite a number of sessions. It was a little more complicated than I would say the police and fire negotiations were. The ASME group has ratified the tentative agreement, and the the agreement is now before you all for your consideration, so I want to kind of walk you through it. When we started these negotiations from the city's perspective, we were looking at a contract with, I would say, not the best worded contract in a lot of respects, and I've done a lot of contracts in my career, and certainly you have challenges in every round of negotiations that we had. Ours in this contract, we did identify some objectives that we wanted to accomplish in this process, and as we walk through some of the changes here, I will let you know what our objective was, and you know, the change will reflect that with what I believe is a successful changing of the language to the city's benefit. Overall, though, I would say this was a fair and balanced agreement. The union members did get some things. They got a reasonable wage increase. They got some additional benefits by virtue of the city, by and large, moving what was done in terms of ordinance on benefits over to those that are in the bargaining unit. So there were some benefits that they achieved through changing language on vacations and holidays. But on the flip side, we were able to, I think, secure certain management rights and also clear up some language to our benefit. So I would call it a pretty fair and balanced agreement overall. I want to start in terms of the substance, talking about kind of tend to be the more important things in negotiations, that is the wages. Unlike the police and fire, where we had an objective to try to bring our police and fire up to kind of the standards of this area, the West Shore area, we didn't have that challenge here with this ASME group, because by and large, the wages they were earning were up to specs in terms of the comparators. There were a couple exceptions to that. We did address those, which I'll talk about in a minute. But overall, the wage package that we negotiated with the union was a 3% in the first year, 3% increase, a 3.5% increase in the second year, and a 3% increase in the third year. As I said, there were a few jobs that we felt were underpaid, and out of concerns of retention and recruitment, we made adjustments to 3 job titles. One was the head mechanic position, where we agreed to, and this was actually coming from us, from the city's perspective, because we saw the need here. We had proposed a $2 an hour increase for the head mechanic, and that was what was negotiated. We also negotiated a $1.50 an hour increase for the mechanic. As we looked at the mechanic positions in our contract, they were low paid, and we were having some difficulty in terms of recruiting mechanics, which obviously is an important position. The other adjustment we made was not more driven by a change in responsibilities and duties, and that was the police clerks. They had taken on significant duties and responsibilities beyond what they had done historically, involving recording and retention of records and such. So we did provide a $1.50 an hour equity adjustment for that position as well. The other thing I would mention is one of the objectives we wanted to try to achieve in the wage section was the ability to bring in folks at a higher than the start rate in terms of when they come in as employees of the city. So if we have an experienced mechanic, for instance, sometimes it's a little difficult to hire them if they've got years of experience and we're bringing them in at the first step rate. So the city has discretion to bring them in at a higher rate. That discretion resides with us. And that was one of the important objectives that we wanted to achieve in order to make sure that we are able to hire the folks, the skilled folks that we need in these operations. There were, in terms of what I would call a win-win situation, we did entertain a proposal from the union to add certification and licensure payments to a number of positions. Now, they came in asking for certification and licensure increases on probably 50 positions. They were tracking the Lakewood ASME contract and figured they'd slap it on us and see if we'd agree to it. We did actually, both the Parks and Rec director and service director, along with Ms. Pay, looked through these positions and identified where do we really need to apply certification and licensure premiums. And we selected and identified positions like building trades positions, the carpenters and plumbers. So if we have somebody that comes in with a plumber license or a carpenter license or electrician license or certification, or if they attain that while employed, they will get extra pay for that. There were also a variety of other positions where we identified particular licensures and certifications where we felt it would benefit the city if these folks achieved those certifications and licensures. So the total number of licensure premiums that we implemented in this contract as part of this tentative agreement was approximately 20 job titles. But again, we looked at these job titles and we thought it made sense to provide these increases or certification premiums for these positions. On the insurance side, some of this tracked what we did with police and fire. The employee premium sharing for the insurance was increased from 14 to 15%. And also, probably more critically, the HSA contributions from the city are now capped at their current levels. There was a natural inflator in the union contracts, which by virtue of IRS regulations, would generally drive up the contribution levels from the city on an annual basis. And so we eliminated that natural inflator, and now we have those numbers capped, which I thought was important. We thought was important in terms of capping costs, or at least controlling costs on the insurance benefits for the employees. The other change we made was on the visual and dental coverage. For this year, and this year only, we did a modest increase on the visual and dental premium contributions from the employees, setting it at 15%. I think it's currently at $10 a month for dental for family and $1 a month for vision coverage. So it raised those numbers and it created getting a natural inflator down the road. But on the flip side of that, the union had proposed that their employees, their bargaining unit, be covered by what is called the AFSCME care plan, the union care plan. That care plan primarily, or I would say exclusively, provides supplemental benefits, vision, dental, some other smaller items. They had asked us to consider doing the dental and vision under the AFSCME care plan. We took a look at it. We did a cost analysis of that, and it turned out that the cost of providing that benefit to the employees, where we pay a $64 a month premium for the employees, was actually less expensive than what it's costing us now for those vision and dental benefits. So there was some savings for the city. It was something the union wanted to achieve for its members. I represent a lot of cities that have AFSCME groups in them, and a number of those cities do have, at least at a minimum, their AFSCME groups on one or more of these supplemental benefits under the AFSCME care plan. So that was a change for these folks, and of course they voted it and they approved it, and so the membership was in favor of that. So those were what I would call the major changes in terms of the finances, the wages, and the insurance. What I'd like to do is try to go through quickly some of the other changes that were made in the contract. I'm not going to touch on every one of them, but I'm going to try to summarize those, and obviously if you have questions as we go along, feel free to ask those. The first, if you have a copy of the contract in front of you, the first change that I want to highlight was under Article 6, Union Security. So there was some old language here. You'll see some red line changes there. There was some old language that was dealing with what was called a fair share fee, where folks who did not want to join the union would have to pay a comparable union, basically union fee. It was called a fair share fee, which was a comparable or equal union due. The Supreme Court about 6 or 7 years ago outlawed those provisions as being unconstitutional. This language was not cleaned up at that time to address that, and so that really is just language that was cleaned up to reflect the current law. So if you're wondering about those changes. The next area that I want to highlight is under Article 9, the disciplinary procedures. So previously, or in the existing contract, there were 2 separate discipline articles. We saw this. We didn't think it made a lot of sense. We also thought that the discipline language in the contract was a little too elaborate from our perspective. And so what we did was we reduced the 2 articles dealing with discipline into 1. We also kind of limited the language and streamlined it a little bit. And what we did was we salvaged the most important things regarding the discipline language, and that being due process. So the due process provisions exist. In other words, the employees, if somebody is accused of doing something that might warrant discipline, they are provided notice and substance regarding the allegation and are given an opportunity to respond before we discipline employees. So that those protections are preserved, but if you look at the before and after, we were able to streamline and tighten up that language. The next article is Article 10, the probationary period. I don't think that changed. I know these articles changed a little further down. What we did agree, the union wanted to reduce the probationary period. It's currently 12 months. And the significance of the probationary period is if an employee is terminated during that probationary period, they have no access to the grievance procedure. They cannot challenge it. A year or 12 months for a civilian position is rather long by my experience. It's not long when it comes to police and fire, but normally you see 90 days, 120 days, 6 months. On occasion I'll see 1 year, but it is rather rare. And so the union wanted to reduce it to a more significant degree than 9 months. We compromised with them and we agreed to reduce the probationary period to 9 months. That was in tandem with conversations with the directors that were on our side of the table. They felt that that was an adequate amount of time to be able to evaluate an employee, which is the objective we want to make sure we maintain. Couple of changes in this language under 10.03. Probationary employees during their first 60 days were not able to get funeral leave. So we deleted that exclusion from the contract, and so folks from day one, if they qualify, if they have a family member that passes, they will be entitled to funeral leave. So that was a benefit. We actually we kind of spearheaded that proposal because it would reflect what we do pretty much citywide, and we just thought it was the right thing to do. And then 10.05, I just want to make a point again about the probationary period. If anybody is concerned that 9 months is not enough time, we do have the ability to go to the union if we want to extend a probationary period, and if they agree to that, then we can extend that probationary period.
I actually did have a quick question about that. Is
Yes.
it one single extension, and what is the maximum duration of the extension?
There's no answer to that.
Okay.
It's likely to be 1, and it's likely to be probably 60 days, but we didn't put those parameters. And it is obviously in our control in terms of, we can't be compelled to extend it, but we do need the union's blessing. Normally the way these things work is if you have somebody that's on the fence and you don't want to fire them necessarily, you say to the union, we want to look at this guy or girl another 90 days or 60 days, and if the union says no, you fire them. So, okay, the next article was seniority. The union had proposed under 11.02C, they had asked to extend this is basically a recall period. So folks on layoff maintain their seniority under the current contract for 18 months, and then they've got no rights to return. They had asked to extend that to 24 months. We agreed to that. We thought it made sense. If folks are out there and they were a good employee and they're still interested in coming back to work for the city and the the unfortunate circumstance if we ever had to engage in layoffs, they would have a 24-month recall period. Under the hours of work, the next article, a lot of this was cleanup. I would say that the real substantive change was under 12.07. The prior language seemed to suggest that if we went to shifts, if we go to shifts where we might have a second shift, for instance, that based on seniority, folks could bid into those positions. We wanted to make sure that was based on job classification, because we may have certain needs on a second shift for a particular job classification. We also don't want, if we have 2 electricians on staff, we don't want them both moving to the second shift, where that leaves us without an electrician on the first shift. So it was something important to the service director that we get that accomplished in that language, and we were able to do that with the change in 12.07. Under overtime premium, Article 14, there was a minor change under 14.02. This language was designed to, I guess, penalize folks that were utilizing a lot of unexcused sick leave or sick time. And the prior language, existing language, I should say, identifies that if somebody has taken more than 10 unexcused sick leave days in the previous year, then this other time they take off is not counted as hours worked for purpose of overtime. We had asked to eliminate that language. I think it was our opening proposal, and we did strike a compromise where they agreed to reduce, the union agreed to reduce that number to 7. So it was a little bit of a victory there on that language. Anything you can get into these union contracts to kind of dissuade people from taking sick leave when they don't need it is a win. So we were happy to accomplish something there. The next article was kind of a biggie, and that's under 15.04, and that's a new section dealing with snow plowing. We had experienced some difficulty of getting folks to volunteer to plow the snow, and there aren't many more, I think, duties or responsibilities that are more important for these folks than snow removal. Y'all don't, I don't think this group does garbage pickup, so I would have said that's second, but like most cities, that's privatized. This might be their most important function, snow removal. And so part of this was this discussion was started a little bit behind the scenes by Director Hitt and with the union. The union was cooperative in terms of coming up with a system to get folks to come in and plow. And so what we came up at the bargaining table was to create an on-call list for snow removal, and we kind of rotate people through that on-call list. And it was kind of, Brian, it was implemented, right?
Yeah, we did a practice
midterm.
run on it
Yeah.
during the negotiations to see how things are going in case there were any hiccups.
Yeah, and I think
Seemed pretty
it started, at first blush, it was working pretty well.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had good success this year.
Yeah.
Wow. It started off real bad, ended up real good.
Yeah, good. And so we codified that language into the contract, and that was an important piece for us in terms of our operations. And I would call that a win for the city, at least getting that new language in the contract. The next article, funeral leaves. This is what we did was basically track the city ordinance and modify the language in Article 16 to basically match the city ordinance in terms of the benefit level. So there were some pluses for the employees in adopting the ordinance language on that. The same point regarding the jury duty. The current language, which we've now changed, required people to turn in their jury pay if they were doing jury duty where they would receive full pay while they're down there. The city ordinance does not require that, and so this was more our position here, that we weren't gonna require the folks to turn in their $35 or whatever it is they get when they spend it all on parking and lunch while they're down there anyway, so we throw them a little bone there. Under sick leave, there was one benefit addition that we provided to the employees. Again, I think this tracks city ordinance under 20.01. We added the adoption of a child also for the ability to utilize sick leave as opposed to just the birth of a child. And then I'm going to skip a few sections here where I think if there were changes, they were minor at most. To the layoff and recall article. Just want to make sure mine's tracking here. Article 24. So we looked at this layoff and recall article, and again, we're talking about a scenario we hope we never face, but one has to be prepared in the event that happens someday. Knock wood, it won't. The layoff language was a little problematic for us. It basically identified that we need to lay off folks based on seniority, irrespective of what job they held. If you read the language literally, the only demarcations were if you were a student, you went first, and if you're temporary, part-time, or seasonal, you went next, and then non-probationary employees went next. And obviously, that's not the best way to do a layoff. If you're doing a layoff, you're going to target positions or areas where you can, I guess, best afford to lose a body or a position. So you may identify we need to lay off 2 laborers. Under this language, we could have let's say, one mechanic in the city that might be a 2-year employee, and even though we thought it'd be best to lay off a couple of laborers, and if the least senior laborer was 3 years, we would be forced to lay off the mechanic. Not a very workable system. So we were able to negotiate the change of 2402, where it talks about employees should be laid off by affected job classification on the basis of seniority. And also when it comes to bumping, we added language that identified that the bumping should first occur within the department. But the more important piece of that language was to get the affected job classification language in. This might seem a little hypothetical. I actually went through this when I was representing Lakewood many years ago, when they went through layoffs back in 2009. And this union actually challenged the layoff order over there. It was requiring us to lay off like people in the law department before we laid off, laborers, just because the language was so broadly worded. They did prevail in that challenge, but it did raise an eyebrow. And when I looked at this language along with the folks on our bargaining committee, we decided we needed to make the change. And so the union did cooperate in that respect, and we were happy to get that change incorporated. The next section I want to touch upon for a minute is vacations, Article 27. And the language primarily here tracks the city ordinance. So there were some changes made. The way that accrual occurs primarily was the big change. It didn't necessarily result in more vacation time, but just the way it is accrued. And there were also some other minor changes that were made to make it consistent with the city ordinance. One thing I do want to point out is under 27.08, we did allow for employees that were hired on before February 1st, 2026. We happen to use that date because I think at the time that this language was floated as a proposal, it was late January, early February. So we stuck with that date. But the way it reads now would be employees hired on before February 1st, 2026 shall be provided prior service credit up to a maximum of 5 years for full-time employment with another public employer in the state of Ohio. So if those folks that brought some years of service over here, they're going to get another 5 years tapped on for purposes of vacation accrual. So this could result in folks getting an extra week of vacation as a result of this modification. It was a good it was a good pickup for the employees. But there is similar language, I think, in the ordinance, so actually I think the ordinance may be a little more expansive than what we negotiated here. We did cap it at those employees basically that were hired on before February 1st, and we also have reserved the right to apply this prior service credit to new hires on a case-by-case basis. That would be within our discretion. This is another tool in terms of recruitment. If you've got senior folks with experience in other jurisdictions, you may be able to offer them a reasonable and competitive wage, but if they're going to sacrifice a couple of weeks of vacation, they may not be interested in coming over. So these things, I've negotiated this type of language in other contracts, and the cities tend to use this judiciously, but it's a good I guess, candy bar to have in the pocket in the event that you have a really qualified employee and you need to entice them to come over. On the holidays, this was in part trying to track the city ordinance in terms of the days off that are honored as holidays. The net result of this negotiated change was that the employees picked up 2 additional paid days off, because they picked up 4 named holidays but sacrificed 2 floating holidays. They also picked up under 2804 1 additional premium day, and that being the day after Thanksgiving. So that was a benefit for the employees. What was eliminated was language regarding an hour of comp time for every 2 hours worked on some of the other specified holidays. So there was a little bit of give and take there. I think overall the employees got at least a modest benefit on the changes that were made under the holidays article. The next article I want to touch upon, Article 31, dealing with CDLs, commercial driver's licenses. So the current language, there was a mandate in there that we had to basically train and get folks certified on CDLs. And we didn't want to be mandated to have to do that. Obviously our primary objective is to hire folks in with CDLs. The other piece of it is folks who get the CDLs on their own. We still have the option of doing that in terms of paying for and providing the training, or paying for the training of for the CDLs. But we thought that the current language is a little too oppressive in that regard. Also, the current language would require us, if somebody was not successful getting a CDL, to place folks. It may not have been a complete mandate, but it was a strong push that we would have to consider placing folks in other positions if they weren't successful in getting their CDL. We did eliminate that language. And the other language that we provided for in this CDL article was that if we do pay for CDLs for folks and they separate from employment within 3 years, they will be responsible for paying us the cost of that training back, which is not unusual language to find in contracts where the city is providing extra training for employees at their cost. I'm going to skip a few articles here because I don't think there's anything significant that was changed. I already spoke to the hospitalization, so I'll skip over that. And there are a few other articles here. The next article would be the shift differential, which is Article 38. And the current contract had language in there dealing with shift differential, but it was kind of generalized language. We thought it made sense to have more specific language in the contract that clearly demarks when these first, second, and third shifts start and begin. for purposes of shift differentials. So we were able to negotiate that language. Again, I would look at that as kind of tightening up the language of the contract, which was one of our objectives in these negotiations. And then that brings us to the uniform allowance. So there were two things that there were actually three things that we were trying to accomplish with our proposals on uniform allowance. Number one, the language is not clear on folks separating from employment whether or not they should get uniform allowance. These payments would be applied twice a year, and the way these contracts normally work is if you're here when the uniform payment is made, you get it, and if you're gone when the next one is due, you don't get it. The union had filed a grievance a couple of years back, and I don't know if it was a couple of years, it was a little time ago, and made the case that they ought to get payment because it talks about an annual payment, and the grievance was settled giving them the payment. So we wanted that language to reflect that if you're not here, you don't get the payment. And so they'll get the payment when they're here, and if they leave before the second piece of it comes during the year, they will not receive that. And that's the way these types of allowances normally work in contracts. So we cleaned that up. The other thing we did was there was a listing of specific uniform items in the contract. Those things are best kept to management's discretion. So we wanted to get rid of all those references to, this is what we want employees to wear, et cetera, green shirts and blue pants. So we eliminated that language and basically left it within the service directors or rec directors' discretion in terms of what folks need to come to work with in terms of their uniforms. So that was cleaned up. The last thing, there was a little bit of a peculiar happenstance with respect to the uniform allowance that was negotiated, I think in the last contract. It was identified to be provided to all service department employees. The intent there was that it was going to go to folks that were out in the field, laborers, mechanics, et cetera. There was a service department administrative assistant who was part of the service department. Because the language was worded in very general terms, she was provided the benefit, the $1,500 a year, even though she was occupying an administrative assistant position as opposed to being out in the field, having to deal with the elements and such. So we negotiated that language out of the contract because that was not the intent of the original language as I understand it. We will continue to pay it until 2028, at which time it'll sunset at the end of the contract. So that was the third change that we were able to accomplish in the uniform allowance section. There's if you fast forward to Article 44, and that should be obligation to negotiate. Actually, I think it was formerly 45. Article 45. So, and you'll see it's deleted now, and it was formerly 4503. That language required the city to, if it wanted to change any, what it would refer to as a past practice, would have to negotiate with the union to secure that change to the practice. And if the union didn't agree, they could take the city to arbitration, and an arbitrator would decide whether or not we could eliminate that practice. That was very problematic from our perspective, and we were insistent that that language be removed from the contract. The union pushed back for a lot of sessions, but we were ultimately able to accomplish that change of the contract language, I think in our last bargaining session. So you'll see that language now eliminated, and we don't have to live with the specter of every time we have a practice in place, we're kind of locked in. locked in concrete, we can now modify those practices. On a lesser note, the next article, grievance procedure, that's a few articles ahead. This was another effort at trying to streamline the process. Our objective here was to make sure that formal grievances are filed at the director level as opposed to immediate supervisor. We don't want lower level supervisors making decisions that might impact operations or might have a financial implication when it comes to a grievance filed by the union. So these things need to be filed at the director level at the first step, in our opinion, and the union was agreeable to modifying the language to that effect. That was the primary change that was made in the grievance procedure. There were some other, I think, minor changes as well, but that was the material one that was made. And that is, I think, it in terms of what I would call the substantive changes to the contract. So if anybody has any questions.
Thanks so much, Don. This was very thorough. I appreciate that, you walking us through so many detailed elements of this contract. Is there any discussion from council? Councilwoman Waring? No? Okay.
No, I just wanted to thank you for being here this evening. This was exceptionally thorough, and I was glad that we were able to go through and see all of the changes. Being that the service department has agreed to this, and the administration has agreed to this, I have to assume that we all believe that it is enough of a win to consider here on council. So I just appreciate having all of that outlined. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And if I may?
Yes, Director May.
And just kind of like the big picture with negotiations with this contract and with the other contracts, and with changes in the ordinances that impact non-union employees, is just to have the goal to have consistency across the board. That, you know, we don't have different vacations depending on what union you're at, sick time, and so forth, and also health insurance. So with this contract, we're able to get consistent health insurance, the 85-15 for all city employees who receive health insurance, probably with the exception of the dental going forward. But it's just things like that, like looking at these contracts, you know, we're basically 4 different groups operating in different methods. So it's moving towards more uniformity throughout the city, and appreciate Mr. Delano's assistance with that.
Thank you, Director Pay.
I do want to say one thing, that the committee, Brian, Carey, Jen, were terrific, and in terms of getting this thing accomplished. So.
Director Dever.
Just one thing, John, thank you very much. This contract is probably 16 years in the making as far as spelling out, defining, and making sure that everybody has a complete understanding of what is the obligations of the union employees as well as the obligations of the city. And I'm appreciative of the fact of spelling out the whole arbitration process and how we are going to go about doing that in the event, hopefully, we don't have anything that's going to go to a grievance or to an arbitration. But if we do, we're going to have a pretty clear set of rules. So thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you for the slog, John. I know it was pretty hard with the 3 unions, but thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for coming out, John Delano. And with no further discussion from council, I'd like to make a motion to place ordinance 2637 on second read with emergency passage.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Councilman Lang.
Yes.
Minnick?
Yes.
Greenfield, yes. King?
Yes.
Waring?
Yes.
Rayleigh?
Yes.
Mann?
Yes.
All right, excellent. The ordinance passes 7-0. Awesome. Moving on to ordinance 2638, authorizing application and administration for the 2027 CDBG grant. Megan Otter, thanks for hanging with us, Megan.
Thank you. I did my presentation earlier at 6:30, but we will be asking for this grant for design of Westwood.
All right, thank you. Any questions from council for Megan?
If I may, Megan, could you please let us know the amount that we're asking for? Or repeat it, I guess, since we
It's
know we
about
had you.
72,000.
72, I do believe that was the number,
Yeah.
72,000.
And some change, but I don't remember it offhand. And I don't
Approximately
have
72,000 is perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So approximately 72,000. Okay, got it. Awesome. Any other questions from council for Megan regarding ordinance 2638? All right, I'd like to make a motion to place ordinance 2638 for second read and final passage.
Second read and final passage? Do we need to go emergency? Is that
Or just go
needed in the motion?
So it should be passed next week.
Second read, emergency passage.
No,
what I-
so moved it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, fantastic. Councilman Lang.
Yes.
Minnick?
Yes.
Greenfield, yes. King?
Yes.
Waring?
Yes.
Rayleigh?
Yes.
Mann?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Passes 7-0. All right, ordinance 2639, authorizing application and administration for the 2027 GDSG grant. Megan Otter, you're up.
Yep. So this one will be asking for $50,000 for the Belvedere Sewer Project.
All right, any questions or comments or discussion from City Council?
If I may, just could you tell us approximately how much money we're asking for?
This
50.
one will be for the full 50, which is the max ask for this grant. And the project in total is about $4 million.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, fantastic. I move to place ordinance 2639 on second read and emergency passage.
So moved.
Do I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Councilman Lang.
Yes.
Minnick?
Yes.
Greenfield, yes. King?
Yes.
Waring?
Yes.
Rayleigh?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Thank you, Megan Otter. You've been amazing as always.
Thank you,
Thanks, Megan.
All right, ordinance 2640, authorizing the sale of obsolete city vehicles. Director Hitch, did you have any comments regarding your vehicles that you discussed at our previous meeting last week?
No, I think I pretty much spelled it out. We were getting rid of the 2014 GMC, which was previously used in the fire department, was decommissioned by them. We resurrected it back. It's had its time. And the 2017, 2019 were former police Explorers vehicles that have done their time in the service department also. Those vehicles were deemed by the lead mechanic that they were pretty much getting to the end of their life cycle. He said spent a lot of time with repairs. There's holes in the floors. The one is fill up the oil and check the gas. So it's pretty much those three are ready to be decommissioned. That's why we're selling them. Auction, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you so much, Director Hitch. I appreciate that repeat of the language regarding the ordinance. Any questions or statements or from council regarding ordinance 2640? No? All right. I'd like to make a motion to place ordinance 2640 on second read and emergency passage.
Second.
Excellent. Councilman Lang.
Yes.
Minnick.
Yes.
Greenfield, yes. King.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Rayleigh.
Yes.
Mann.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. We are just clicking along. All right, Resolution 2613, the resolution appointing a tax incentive review council. There's an amendment for this resolution, and the mayor is going to speak to this.
Do you want to talk about what it is, actually?
Yes.
Okay. Jen, do you want to fill everybody in why we need to do this?
Yes. So the Tax Incentive Review Council, also known as TIRC, T-I-R-C, is required because we now have an active TIF, the Lorraine Road TIF. And so annually, when Cuyahoga County does a review of the tax increment financing, which is what TIF stands for, to do that review of Lorraine, or Lorraine Road TIF, which has 3 properties over in the Worcester area. So the apartment building, McGowan, the 2 apartment buildings in McGowan are the TIFed properties. So it just is required by the Ohio Revised Code that the county looks at that and talks about the performance. And so they have people representing the county, and then we need people representing the community where the TIF occurs. So that is the appointment of these individuals.
All right, thank you so much, Director Pay, for giving some details about Resolution 2613. Mayor, did you have some additional comments?
Yeah, so we need at least 2 individuals to serve on this. We can appoint, I can't even think of the word, an alternate member or 2 if we need so. The amendments on the that we would need to make to the legislation, essentially, I had originally intended for 2 people who are well within, they understand what TIFs are, they understand how they function. Unfortunately, I cannot appoint them to this TIF committee because they are not allowed to be appointed via our rules. So I had to choose 2 new people. So the 2 new people that will be added, we're going to include Tim Jackson on there as originally intended. Angela Russo, former councilman, has agreed to do so, and Thad Gauthier, 46-year resident, he's going to be an alternate member. So what we need to do is we need to get people appointed to this thing just so that we can file our first annual report.
All right, thank you for that understanding of the reasoning behind the amendment. Any discussion amongst council regarding Resolution 2613 before I bring forth the motion for the amendment? Any discussion? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to amend Resolution 2613 to replace Matthew Kavanaugh and Matthew Ruby with Angelo Russo as the member and Thad Gunther as the alternate.
Gauthier.
Second.
Gantier, sorry. Second. All right. Councilman Lang.
Yes.
Minnick.
Yes.
Greenfield, yes. King.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Rayleigh.
Yes.
Mann.
Yes.
All right. The motion passes 7-0. I'd like to make a motion to place Resolution 2613 with the amendment on second read and emergency passage.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Councilman Lang.
Yes.
Minnick.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Rayleigh.
Yes.
Mann.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Greenfield, yes. I totally went out of order, sorry. It's 9:15. All right, moving on to ordinance 2636, authorizing the sale of city-owned football equipment. This was remanded back to committee because of our concerns regarding the certification of this pre-owned equipment. Is there any further discussion regarding this equipment? Councilwoman
yes.
Mann?
So I had sent Director Kemp, my question might not be here tonight, and my big concern was that we might be putting uncertified helmets, a very dangerous thing to do for the youths, into a Play It Again sports, where maybe the parents buying them didn't realize that they weren't certified to be safe according to the standards that are currently in use and wouldn't know that they need to get them recertified, reconditioned. But Director Kemp wrote back and said that the helmets, some of the helmets that they own are currently still certified, that the other ones that are not certified will not be sold. They will be considered as what is listed in the ordinance as not being usable equipment, and they'll be scrapped. And that they will end up keeping probably a couple of the certified helmets for their own use still. So that puts my mind at ease that we're not going to inadvertently set somebody up for trouble with an uncertified helmet.
Well, that's excellent news, and it's great to know that our rec department is on top of knowing which helmets are certified and which ones are not. So that keeps not only future owners of those helmets safe, but our own children safe as well. So thank you for the clarification, Councilwoman Mann.
Sure.
And Kim, thank you for reaching out to Director Kemp for that information. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. All right, I'd like to place, I'd like to move to place ordinance 2636 up for second and emergency passage.
So moved.
Second.
Excellent. Councilman Lang.
Yes.
Minnick.
Yes.
Greenfield, yes. King.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Raley.
Yes.
Mann.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes 7-0. All right, up next, Resolution 2612, the alternative tax budget for 2027. Director Pay.
Yes, thank you. Before you is the tax budget that was put together that will be submitted to the Cuyahoga County Fiscal Office before the deadline required by Ohio Revised Code. And it essentially is a listing of the levies, property tax levies that the voters have enacted or our charter millage, and what we feel our estimated amounts will be, and the amounts that are requested of the Budget Commission are essentially the amounts that we received this year with a little bit of a increase in that, but again, it's really the Cuyahoga County that comes up with the numbers that they estimate that will go into our Schedule A. So it is just justifying our millage to show that we are spending it and for the purposes that we said we're going to spend it for, and what the projected funding, ending fund balances are going to be. But again, these are very, very preliminary, and it's checking a box as required by the Ohio Revised Code.
Excellent. All right, any questions for Director Pay around the alternative tax budget for 2027? Any comments? Okay. All right, so I'd like to make a motion to place Resolution 2612, the alternative tax budget for 2027, up for second read with emergency or third read with emergency passage. Or second? Third with subsequent? Third and final passage.
Third.
So moved.
Second.
Excellent. Councilman Lang.
Yes.
Minnick.
Yes.
Greenfield, yes. King.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Raley.
Yes.
Mann.
Abstain.
Okay. That one. Okay. I think we're going to have to redo that. There's a motion for Exhibit A that you wrote over here.
If you want to put it in an exhibit A, you make a motion for that.
Do I? Okay.
You
I'm sorry?
put it as an exhibit, because this is not in the legislation as we have it, so you're gonna make a motion to just put that in with the legislation.
Okay.
It's really council's decision to do that. Essentially, the ordinance saying to submit it, but I know it refers to an Exhibit A in the ordinance, so yeah,
Okay.
I would just to make it nice and clean.
Okay, all right, that sounds great. All right, so we have 6 yeses and 1 abstention on the resolution. Councilwoman Mann, if you'd like to explain your abstention.
I did not receive a copy of the budget until after we got here this evening.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
didn't have a chance to look at it.
All right, thank you very much for your explanation. And at this time, I'd like to make a motion to amend Resolution 2612 for tax budget as Exhibit A.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Councilman Lang.
Yes.
Minnick?
Yes.
Greenfield, yes. King?
Yes.
Waring?
Yes.
Rayleigh?
Yes.
And Mann.
Yes.
Do I need to pass the motion with the resolution again? The resolution with the motion, with the amendment? Okay. All right. In order to attach that motion to Resolution 2612, we will do another vote. I'd like to place Resolution 2612, the alternative tax budget 2027, with the amendment of Exhibit A
So moved.
for third and final passage. So moved. Second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Councilman Lang?
Yes.
Minnick?
Yes.
Greenfield, yes. King?
Yes.
Waring?
Yes.
Rayleigh?
Yes.
Mann?
Abstain for previously
Can I
stated
make-
reason.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make a note for on the abstention.
Okay.
It was discovered today that was sent in error to Kim Kerber versus Kim Mann. So that was the purpose of why she did not receive it.
All right, thank you for that clarification, Liz. All right, with no further business for the Finance Committee, the committee meeting will end at, 9:22.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next up, Local Government and Community Service. Chief, thank you so much for staying all evening with us. I guess we saved the best for last, huh? Okay, Councilwoman Waring, take it away.
Thank you. Local Government and Community Services will begin at 9:22 p.m. Chief, again, thank you so much for not just.
Could you speak over
Oh,
there
I'm
for the microphone?
sure can.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, not just to hang out with us this evening, but also to talk about a few issues with us. So I appreciate your patience. We have asked the police chief to come in under the issue police updates. And I know that there were several issues raised by council privately that we just wanted to discuss, to get an update on what's going on in the department. So I don't know if you want us to, ask questions of you, or if you want to start with a general update.
If it's okay with you, can we start with the school resource officer, get that off the plate, and then we can go to the meat and potato section?
Sure thing.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
First, before I take your questions, I'd like to respectfully just ask council what you've heard from your constituents about our school resource program. Councilman Lang?
I have not been approached about him specifically, but I have had several neighbors who have had interactions with him that I saw over the past couple of weeks. And a lot of neighbors of mine are at St. Angela, and I had the opportunity to ask them, and they have all been very complimentary of the work of the school resource officer as it relates to his work at St. Angela.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Councilman Minnick, any input?
Positive results. Thank you.
Councilwoman Greenfield?
The comments are, sorry.
If I may, real fast,
Yes.
if you choose, you don't have to necessarily give
Right.
the chief your
Mhm.
update. I know he's just trying to get information, but I don't
Right.
want anybody to feel like they're on the spot.
Right.
Please feel free to pass if you
Yeah,
would
you
like,
don't have
but
to.
I
I'm
think
just
we.
curious.
The positive feedback is knowing that he's there.
Okay.
The sense of safety, because he's present, that the resource officer is present. There's a sense of safety when they go to the football events and they go to homecomings and to proms, because there's a presence of safety with the resource officer being there.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Council President?
I've heard from workers and teachers, and is all positive.
Very good. Councilwoman Waring?
Yeah, I can speak probably from a unique position here on council with 2 children in the city schools, and additionally attending parent-teacher conferences, speaking at different events within the school district. I've heard absolutely nothing but great things from the students, from the teachers. I literally went to speak at the career explorations class where a couple of students went out of their way without even discussing it to say, hey, you helped bring in the student resource officer. Tell us a little bit more about that decision. We really love having him around. So same thing, where every interaction that I have had has been positive.
I appreciate that. Councilman Rayleigh?
Chief, I've heard wonderful things about your officer, and with my experience, my day job, I've had a wonderful experience with school resource officers across the state.
Appreciate that. Councilwoman Mann?
I haven't heard from anybody except for the principals at the various schools where you sent their glowing recommendations for him.
Okay, thank you. So just encompass. Very happy with Officer McLaughlin. Since that, we've also trained Officer Toth and Officer Titler as backups in case there's an illness or anything like that. Our officers are encouraged to go to the schools. Our officers are encouraged to interact with kids as much as possible, whether it be a lemonade stand or just handing out. We have these certificates where we see a child wearing a bike helmet. They can get ice cream at either East Coast Custard or Dairy View. So we take our community policing angle very seriously, and the school resource officer is just one of those things. So I appreciate the good word. It's a work in progress. We continue to go improve every day. We learn from our differences, but all in all, very happy with the program and looking forward to continue on in a successful way.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for the chief on the school resource officer or how it is working out within the city?
Madam Chair?
Absolutely, go ahead.
So I asked this question before when this was first under consideration.
Sure.
Who initiated the program?
It was a joint initiation between the schools and the department. We've always had a good relationship with the school, but the previous school administration was hesitant to do it. And then when Superintendent Ahern came in, because he had such a incredible success in North Ridgeville and Lakewood, where he was with school resource officers, it was just a good thing. So we got together and we took our time. We we looked at other suburban school districts to get the program together, and what we have is what we have.
Okay. And what problem were they trying to solve with the SRO?
Well, first is the question of school safety. Secondly, it's the fact that we want our community to have faith in our officers and to see our officers as human beings, not just people. And what better way is to put an officer in there that can both keep your kids safe, but also be there to answer questions or be available for them if needed.
Okay. I know I brought up at the microphone before I joined council that there's actually studies showing that like in the event of school shooters or something, that having an SRO actually shows that there are more incidents of people being shot at the school. There's different things why they say that might happen, but so I'm wondering, like, what safety? Are we having a problem with criminal activity?
So when you brought that to me, because I hadn't heard of it, I went and looked at that study.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that you brought up was a pathway for children of color to go to prison. That was one of the things that you brought up in the study.
The pipeline.
Okay, well,
yeah.
that pipeline, when you look at that study, was in inner city schools or that had a high crime rate, or rural schools that had no money and couldn't afford anything else.
Okay, but we're talking about safety.
You brought up the study, so I'm addressing the study.
Not that
Yes.
study.
Oh, no, we can't change the topic, that's all
No,
part
no,
of
no,
that
no, no.
study.
No, you said it was for enhanced safety in the schools, and I asked, what is happening at the schools that is increasing the safety?
2017, we had a threat on Color Day, in which a bunch of kids had got together and they had formed got a plan together where they would set an explosive off in the school, shoot it off, and then shoot officers. We investigated that and we vetted it. We've had bomb threats to the school. We've had regional threats, swatting threats. A year ago, we had a gentleman run from a neighboring agency who tried to effect arrest at Giant Eagle. He ran straight to the schools because Officer McLaughlin was in there. He was able to lock the school down and contact all the other schools to make sure that he could not get in until we took him into custody. Recently, and I was going to discuss this during Flock, is we had a gentleman walk into the Panera Bread in Rocky River. He engaged the young lady in conversation and said, "Hey, what are you doing this week?" And she said, "Oh, I'm a student at Fairview Park. I'm going to go to graduation." And he said, "Oh, are you graduating?" She said, "No, I'm going into I'm going to go into the stadium where it is." And he said, "Well, that's funny because, I'm going to walk in there with a gun and I'm going to shoot a bunch of people. And the death count's going to be more because of because they're out in the stadium." So, with Officer McLaughlin, we were able to have a plan to make sure that the school was safe until we were able to work with Rocky River Police to get a warrant and arrest the gentleman. And right now, he's waiting to go to trial and felony charges in Cuyahoga County Common Police Court.
Okay.
So those are the safety issues. And there are other issues like just going from school to school to being inside the school to assess what their safety plans are, and every day evaluating where we can be better to keep our kids safe.
Okay. And you had mentioned community policing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, first of all, before I go there,
Yes, ma'am.
we have an annual meeting at the end of the school year, right, with the superintendent. And
we have constant contact with the superintendent and the rest of the schools.
Okay. But specifically, there's supposed to be an end of the year kind of meeting with the superintendent. And I wondered who is at that meeting, and it also said that changes to the program can be made, that the superintendent can request changes. So,
Sure.
Did you already have that meeting?
No, it's coming up because the school year just got done.
Okay. And who all is at that meeting?
Traditionally, it's myself, the superintendent, and the principals.
Okay, the principals are there too?
The same ones that wrote the glowing letters.
Right. Okay, and at those meetings, well, like last year, because
Yes,
that would have
ma'am.
been the inaugural
Yes,
year, were there any changes made to the program?
There were.
Can you explain what they were?
Yeah, just basically make sure that his training was up to date. We talked about procedurally how things would be done differently in the schools. We started the West Shore Young Leaders Program in the schools, which was a leadership group that was new, that we never had before, so that came about from those meetings.
Okay. Now, does Officer McLaughlin provide recurring reports?
He
Does
does.
he
Mhm.
weekly, monthly, just
He
once a
does
year?
monthly.
Monthly, okay. What type of data or activity does he report to you?
What he does, visiting schools. We also have our CAD system. Every time he leaves a school or goes to another school, he reports it to us.
Okay, okay. Any kind of breakdown about, I spent this many hours doing classes or educating on health or?
No, it's just general stuff.
Okay. Okay, so one of the things that is required in our MOU with the school
Okay.
is to have a clearly defined set of goals for the school resource officer.
Okay.
And ours simply says the officer will serve in a community policing role.
It does?
And will be a positive and visible law enforcement presence.
Correct.
Obviously, glowing reviews. He is a positive and present.
So he's met those goals.
And the community policing, that was the first time I had heard that term when you brought it up, when you were first talking about this, this program. And so I looked into it because I had never heard that before. And so my research on community policing tells me that the concept grew out of a perception that communities are not as tight-knit as they used to be, and that whereas before neighbors all knew each other, they trusted each other, they had expectations
Can I
that
ask you where you got your research so I know what you're talking about? Because that's not the definition of community policing that I know.
I was looking online.
But where? Can you give me
A variety of sources.
Okay, so what community policing is, Councilwoman, is that there was a time in law enforcement where we would just sit in a car, we'd drive around, go from call to call, and just arrest people. But what community policing is where we meet with our business people, our people, our stakeholders, and if there's a problem, like if you remember, like with Seabury, where I tried to meet with the residents, instead of just going and writing tickets, is trying to find out what the root of the issue is. That's what community policing is. And if community policing is also breaking down barriers so that when people are going to make threats or do something, that our officers are informed or they feel more comfortable going to an officer, then I think that's a very good thing.
And that is what I had read about community policing, is that when the community is not as tight-knit and there is not an expectation that you know your neighbor well enough that if something's happening outside your home, you will intervene and you will call the police and know that they will respond and they've got your back. And so people tend to not impose social order themselves in their community, and that it can lead to increased crime, and it can eventually lead to a feeling of being unsafe in your neighborhood.
What are you talking? You lost me, and I want to make sure.
Okay, let me finish. And that eventually the perception.
No, please go back to what you previously said, because you lost me about where is the concept of the
tight-knit communities?
Yeah. So what happens where they lose things? You lost me at
so
that. Just restate that for me.
When communities are tight-knit and interact with their neighbors, they know each other.
Okay.
There is a level of trust and expectation.
Understand.
That we have shared values. So if something was to happen, like in the neighborhood, and you would feel comfortable going out and confronting or intervening some petty crime happening outside your home.
Okay.
Knowing that if this is like your neighbor's child or something, they also would have done the same thing if it was your kid up to this, right?
Okay.
That type of thing.
What you're saying. Go ahead.
Okay. But when you don't know your neighbors, you don't feel as safe intervening like that. And also, you might not, if there is a rise in petty crime, and there is visible signs of that social disorder, that it can lead to bigger crimes and a feeling of being unsafe, and people retreat into their homes and do not want to intervene.
Okay.
And maybe there's a perception that the police are ineffective at controlling the crime, or possibly even, with some people, the question of legitimacy of law enforcement. If this can happen and nobody's enforcing the law, do I have to also follow the law? That type of thing. And it's kind of like a domino effect of the breakdown.
Sure.
Okay, that's where the idea came from about the need for community.
From the various sources that you checked on.
Yes,
Okay.
about community policing.
Okay.
Okay, and that the idea was put law enforcement in place-based, so like a beat cop almost used to have familiarity with the folks in the neighborhood.
Okay.
You'd see them all the time, and there would be a relationship, and this trust could be rebuilt, and it was a two-way. They found that there was like a two-way relationship.
Okay.
That increased trust in the police. The residents felt more like they had their back and they could intervene. They know that if they called the police, if the criminal activity wouldn't stop, the police would come. Okay, so all of that is to say that I wondered what place the schools had in community policing, if that is the underlying thought behind building these trusting relationships in communities with law enforcement officers, so that the people in the community had increased collective efficacy for imposing social order in their community. What do the kids have to do with that? Why are we in the schools doing community policing specifically?
We're not just in the schools doing community policing. We do community policing every day. The schools
Okay.
is just part of our community. Would you agree? Our kids are part of the community, or don't they count? They
The
don't
kids
matter?
are part of the community. Of course, I'm not saying that.
Well, that's what
I would
you're inferring,
appreciate
and
you
we-
not putting words into my mouth that
You
kids are
just went
not.
on about a bunch of stuff,
Mhm.
and you've used sources on the internet in my 30 years of experience as a police officer.
Mhm.
Okay? And the training that I've had about community policing is this, is that every opportunity to talk to a citizen, to earn their trust, to work with them to solve problems at the lowest common level, as opposed to, now you talk about in the 1940s and 50s where a neighborhood would babysit, the kids could run all night and they could do whatever they want, and if you got in trouble, Mrs. Jones would call Mrs. Smith and say, hey, your kid got in trouble.
Mhm.
And right now, our society is not like that right now.
Right.
And I would love to put an officer in every block of the city where we could do that, or 2 blocks. But that would mean that you would triple my police department. And so what we do is we tell our officers when they're not answering calls, get out into the community, go to schools, go to playgrounds, go to businesses, go to I have coffee with the cop at the senior center, because everybody matters in our city. And everybody has a different problem based on where they are in their lives and things like that.
Okay.
Some young kids are bullied and may turn to suicide, where if they don't have anybody to turn to talk to, or maybe a senior citizen that's being abused or being defrauded by their neighbor or a stranger. That's what we're here for. We're here to help every member of the community, from the oldest person to the youngest person, so that they feel comfortable and safe in our city.
I am not sure, though, that it is appropriate to put the schools' hallways and classrooms under the jurisdiction of the police. That,
I guess we agree to disagree, Councilwoman.
Councilwoman Mann, can I ask, this is an approved program. Is your push here that you would prefer it not to be an approved program? I'd like some context, just given that
okay.
we're here for the update, but now I feel, and I'm happy to have the conversation, but as it is an approved program, I just would like some context as to the end goal here. Is this something that you're looking to remove, to figure out how we're supporting? Just because asking for the update is different than what I feel is the pushback happening right now. And I for the rest of the council, I just feel like that context would be helpful.
Well, my point is that in the MOU with the schools, there are no clear defined goals. There's no measurable benchmark or data to show that we are achieving those goals. So what is the purpose specifically of having the positive police presence in the schools?
Well,
Didn't
you just state that our goal is to be community oriented and everything else? And then I just went through all your colleagues, including yourself, who, with the exception of yourself, who reported positive things.
I'm not saying that
So-
people don't have a positive view of Officer McLaughlin. He sounds lovely, and I'm sure he's got great training, and nobody has lodged any complaints
So
against him.
what goals would you like? Arresting 10 kids?
Why are we?
giving
I'm
warnings?
still.
May I interrupt real fast? I just want to make sure that I'm understanding. So what you're pushing for here is further defined goals in the memorandum of understanding. You're unclear on what the officer is supposed to achieve, so
And
it's hard
how
to
do we
measure
measure?
success.
How do we measure it? Just because everybody agrees, Officer McLaughlin's great. I do think that it's important that the schools can partner with our police for various things like assessing security risks or helping to formulate emergency plans, things like that. But
Do you have recommendations for what goals and responsibilities we could outline in the memorandum of understanding?
is there some level of criminal activity that we are trying to decrease in the schools? It sounds to me like a threat made at Panera doesn't necessarily require having an officer in the school.
Chief Shepherd, how did that complaint come to the?
Through Rocky River, the young lady went to Rocky River Police because that's where the threat was made.
Okay.
However, we do have, every day we get, not every day, that's a generalization. On occasion, we do have threats internally, like kids will make a comment like, hey, I'm gonna shoot somebody. We don't handle that. The school goes and addresses it, and if they believe it's a serious enough offense, then we would follow up. Most of it, something is a violation of their ethic or their code of conduct. Like one kid was downloading guns on the computer, and that raised a red flag. Some people have searched for. You have a lot of issues with custody battles sometimes where non-custodial parents will try to come and take their kids from the schools. You have issues with abuse within a relationship where couples are together and sometimes there's abuse. The other thing that's been is bullying, cyberbullying. We recently had photographs, photos that were AI produced of young ladies that we were able to investigate and find out who, and that was through because Officer McLaughlin's cooperation with the kids. We were more easier to find out who did it because they felt comfortable in cooperating and coming forward.
Thank you. Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt. I just wanted to ask that question because you were asking about criminal activity.
Yes, so is the goal then to build this relationship of trust with a police officer so that the children will be more likely to come forward and report what they know?
No.
See, now that I could understand, if that was the goal.
I feel like that's a byproduct.
So
what you wanted, so what you pose is, what you would pose is that our relationship with the officer would make everybody comfortable to come and tattle on everybody. No, that's not what it is. What we want
That
is
is
when people are in crisis and they need assistance, we would hope that they would find a trusted adult, whether it be a school counselor or an officer or anybody else, or if something is happening that needs immediate policing, that we could address it. Fortunately, because of our relationship with the school, we have a very good working relationship that the school handles the discipline in the school. However, every once in a while, it does bleed into criminal activity. Or it's something to determine whether or not criminal activity has gone on.
So do you look upon it as tattling when a resident calls and reports a crime in the neighborhood?
Could you repeat that, ma'am? I'm sorry.
So you look upon it as tattling when a resident calls the police department to report some type of crime in the
I don't
neighborhood?
go to Councilman Rayleigh's house every day and, hi, Mr. Rayleigh, I'm Chief Shepherd, how are you? I hope you're having a good day. Hey, if anything's going on, I don't do that. Well, no, that's your rationale, right? Is that
No,
it's not
I'm-
tattling. What I'm saying is if a crime is occurring, then we would hope somebody would do the best. But kids sometimes are apprehensive and things
That's
are
what
going
I'm
on.
saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I asked. Is this so that you build trust in the children so that they feel that they
No,
can
I
come
think
to
we
you
want-
if
we want-
something's
we
going
want to build
on?
trust in the children all the way up to their grandparents, that they believe that if they come to the police department, we will treat them properly.
Councilwoman Waring?
Okay.
Yes, please.
In the interest of time, thank you, Chief Shepherd, for answering the questions. It sounds as though we need to put together a review discussion of the memorandum of agreement. And since I don't think most of us have read it as in-depth as Councilwoman Mann, maybe we could put that into committee to review the memorandum of agreement for the SOR officer.
If I may, I feel like we could do that, but I feel like that's a step that is a little further past where we are this evening. I think there's a lot of work that needs to get done between here and there. Because this is an approved program, right? It is approved by a council body. It is approved by the administration. It is approved by the school district. I think that if there are questions or concerns that we would like to outline, this shouldn't start as a discussion that says, okay, what do you guys think? It should start with, here are my recommendations for what I think needs to happen. A proposal, and then we can put it into committee. I don't think that's something that we start with just willy-nilly throw it out there. This was discussed, this was litigated, this was approved. So if there are specific changes that we would like to make, or specific changes that we believe would help further outline goals and responsibilities within the memorandum of understanding, I'm happy to entertain those specific changes, but I don't necessarily think this is something that we need to relitigate without specific changes being addressed. This was taken care of, and not even that long ago. I mean, this is a 2-year-old program.
So then would your direction be for council to review the memorandum of understanding and then send any questions to you, and you can make a decision about how we move forward?
I wouldn't say send any questions. Any questions
I
should
think
go
that
through the
if you
chief.
could-
It
yeah,
should be any
send anything you want
recommendations.
to the chief.
You know, if you have a discussion with the chief and say at the end of my discussion, here are my recommendations for what I think needs to happen, then send that to me, and I'd be happy to stick that into committee or to discuss. But I don't think this is something that we need to relitigate without those specific changes that are being asked to be made. So any discussions, I think, would be best served, not with me, but with the arbiter of the program, right? With Police Chief Shepard, with Councilman, or
My door is
Superintendent
always
Hearn.
open, and anytime you've sent me a request or come to me, I'm here. I'll be glad to sit and talk with you.
Okay.
Okay.
Please, come on in.
But I think, to
Yeah,
your point.
I have no problem talking. Again, we can agree to disagree sometimes, but understand that I think we both want the same thing. Well, maybe not. But I think what we agree is that we want our everybody to be safe in our city, and that's what we're working for.
Right, and I'd like to know that the money that we're spending on this is enhancing public safety and not just making us feel good.
Understood.
Okay.
So what I think perhaps we should do for this with the school resource officer then, and I'm happy for anyone to ask additional questions of the current program to Chief Shepard, so I don't want to necessarily close that door if that's the case. But if there are specific changes that we want to see to the program resulting from questions to the chief or to Superintendent Ahern, or things that we're hearing out of the community, then those need to come as a recommendation to this council, and I'm happy to stick this back into committee to discuss. But without specific recommendations, I don't think that we need to open it up for that.
Then yes, I would like to come back and discuss it with recommendations.
Sure, okay, if you want to continue having the discussion with the chief and bring that to, I mean, once the recommendations have been made, I'm happy to discuss how that would be taken care of in committee and how we would handle that. So, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for the chief then on school resource officer before we move on to any other updates that he had?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, chief, for that. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, it's all good. I appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief on any other programs or any other updates that we are looking for?
I'd like to present an update on our flock camera system. So this program started in 2023. Prior to that, the reason that we did it was we've had some crimes that were going on, and we noticed that some of our neighboring agencies were having success with our flock camera system. Before we get started, Councilman Raley and Council President King, I owe you an apology and I need a clarification. In our conversations with each other, I told you that we had shared information with the U.S. Postal Service. We did not. We were in investigations with them. We offered to use our cameras. We never did meet up. So I just want to make sure it's clear. The only federal entity that we share our flock cameras with is the police department at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We do not, FBI, DEA, CIA, ICE, Homeland Security, we do not share any of it. We opted out of the immigration and reproductive rights searches. Why? Because it doesn't affect us, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. There's no local ordinance or state ordinance, to my knowledge, that we need to be searching those things. ICE has never contacted us or reached out to us, or am I aware of any large-scale operations aside from, with Homeland Security, aside from 2 human trafficking cases in which they notified us that they were working, and both were women that were brought in from out of country, and they made sure that they were treated as victims, not as subjects, and they were able to trace who the people were doing it. One was out of China, and the other one was Central America. One was the Central America was at an Airbnb in Henry, and the Chinese started in North Olmsted. Well, regionally, they caught track of it at North Olmsted Hotel. Eventually, they moved into our Ramada, but they were working on warrants, and they ended up making the arrest. Other than that, we had 2 occasions in which we reached out to Border Patrol and ICE in the last 4 years. First one was recently, we had a crime in which a adult male was soliciting sex from a juvenile, and when we came across him, he did not have any identification papers except for an expired Mexican driver's license. We referred to ICE just to confirm who he was, and they took it from there. He was in the country illegally, and they addressed it. The last one was last month. We had a case where multiple people at Planet Fitness called about a suspicious male that was hanging outside, and they were making the female guests concerned. Our officers went there. Turned out it was a Lyft driver who did not have a valid license. All he had was an expired passport from an Asian country. We reached out to Border Patrol to confirm who he was. They confirmed that he had applied for a visa and he was good to go. We just told him not to drive, and he was sent on his way. Those are the 2 cases. When we first got Flock, we looked at Axon, Motorola, and other companies. The reason we leaned towards Flock was because of the large network up here. Currently we have 5 cameras, and when we got the cameras, we installed them in conjunction with North Olmsted and Rocky River so that our cameras would complement North Olmsted cameras and Rocky River's cameras, and they were mostly put at the entrances of our city. If 2 on Brook Park, 1 at the Cleveland border, 1 at the North Olmsted border. We have 1 at the bottom of Massey Road Hill at the Cleveland border. We have 1 at the top of Worcester Road Hill, because we could not put it at the bottom of Worcester Road Hill because that's Med Park. Since we have installed that within the last year, Med Park has installed 1 down there and then 1 at the bottom of Massey Road Hill. And our last one is at 210 in Center Ridge, and that complements 1 that is at Wager and Center Ridge in Rocky River. Since our cameras have come in, Lowe's put in 3 at Westgate. Lowe's is in Rocky River. The parking lot's in there. They have a high theft. They put it in there. We've always had, we haven't always, that's a poor statement. In 2011, when I was a patrolman, we received our first license plate readers from the county. They were LSAG, Leonardo. 2 sets went on a cruiser, so 2 cruisers had a set of readers, and then we had a permanent one put in at the intersection of Story and Lorraine. I was fortunate enough that for me was one of the cars was my car that had the reader, so I got first in knowledge on how to use them. And what I found was this, is they were a good tool. Many times they're reading things at a high rate of speed, and before we stop people, we would verify alerts through. So if there was an alert on the license plate reader, then we would verify, one, that the alert was the license plate that was seen, and that it was on the car that was supposed to go, and then we would run the person through our NCIC leads computer system to confirm that there was indeed a warrant. The license plate readers, all they show is a picture of the car and a picture of the license plate. I showed you that, I think I forwarded you that, of my city car. And the way a search goes is this, is the license plate reader hits it, takes a photograph it scans the license plate on it, and it tells us if that license plate has been entered into NCIC. It could be NCIC for stolen cars, wanted person. It can be as much as it could be a protection order. It could be a whole lot of what else is there? I apologize. I've been up since 4 o'clock in the morning, so bear with me. There are some other things that are sexually oriented offender. That's another one. So it alerts us. Obviously, a stolen car or a wanted person. Our job is to locate the vehicle, confirm that the license plate and the car are the same on the vehicle, confirm it through NCIC that there is something entered in there, and then make a stop, do an interaction. I forwarded you, since we got the flock cameras, I forwarded you 170 entries, CAD entries. Now, not all of those were traffic stops. What they were times where we did welfare checks on somebody, and we used flock to confirm that the car was in motion, or somebody's missing, someone with dementia, or someone is suicidal is driving around. It would alert us so we could locate them. I think I showed you that I pointed out that there were 16 cases in the last 3 years where we were able, through flock, locate people who were either entered missing due to dementia or endangered due to threats against themselves, and locate them, got them to help. The most recent one happened on Saturday when Westlake police got a call that one of the residents was calling a friend saying that he was cutting himself, or he called the suicide hotline, was cutting himself, and he was in a hotel. Our Westlake queried our cameras, found out that he had bounced off our flock camera at Brook Park and our west limits with North Olmsted. Our officers checked the area and located him at the Ramada Inn, where we talked to him and we got him to the hospital. Another more recent one, which I participated in, was an 83-year-old male out of Elyria with dementia, left with his dog, was driving around Elyria, queried our flock cameras, and learned that that he had been in Bay Village, Westlake, North Olmsted, on our border, and Rocky River, and all our departments were looking for. Ultimately, he was caught, he was located entering just in the Lakewood because it hit their flock camera, and he was returned to his family safely. And if you get a chance to look at their other things. A lot of our stolen vehicle entries, they come into town, we find them, we engage them. If we don't find them, we don't find them, but if we do find them, more times than not, it involves us lighting them up, and they flee the scene. We don't chase them long distances. We try to get an ID, and then we terminate the pursuit. As much as we'd like to catch them, we understand that we make sure that the risks don't outweigh the gains. And the other thing is at that point in time, we intercepted somebody committing a crime and got them out of the city. On times that we have located a stolen car, and we were able to take people into custody, they're charged with receiving stolen property. And we've found everything from cars to U-Hauls that have been stolen from outside the state. Other times that flock has been used, The first big case that we cracked was when our Burger King got robbed in 2023. We had a description of the vehicle. We learned that that vehicle, literally a minute before the robbery, had driven through the license plate reader at Clegg and Lorraine. We were able to get a license plate, and then we were able to confirm that that person was responsible for 2 other restaurant robberies. Through that information, we were able to get a warrant for his arrest because we were able to use the security video from inside the store to identify him, along with witnesses, and we were able to charge him. In 2024, we had a 34-year-old resident of ours die from a drug overdose, a fentanyl overdose. Through investigation, we learned that who her drug dealer was, and we were able to set, using both flock and other techniques, through our find out that he had met with her. Through the investigation, we were also able to set up undercover buys, and it led to an indictment, first a search warrant, where we recovered several bulk amount of fentanyl and other narcotics, along with $300,000 in cash and gold and other things. That case is ongoing. We're waiting for that to go. Last summer, we had people go to Savers on Center Ridge, where they were going to exchange a cell phone. Guy gives the buyer the cell phone. Guy tries to drive off. Seller tries to stop him. The buyer ends up taking a pistol whips him while he's hanging on the side of the car. He ends up falling up, going to the hospital. It's a felonious assault robbery. We got a description of the car. It ended up going through the license plate reader at Wager and Center Ridge. We were able to identify it and then find out who the owner was, and then subsequently able to identify who the robber was. North Olmsted PD last October had a woman get bad medical news. She called, she told her family she has a gun, she was going to go kill herself. So North Olmsted put out a be on the lookout for her, and they ran through flock and found out that she was entering our city on Brook Park Road on the west limits. One of our officers located her on Mastic Road. We had a traffic stop, and after about 25 minutes of negotiations, we were able to get her to the hospital where she was safe. Now, I told you about the high school threat. What we did until we were able to secure an arrest warrant for him, we were able to put the suspect's car into what's called a hot list, and so whenever that car got anywhere near our city area, we were alerted, and it was basically like an early warning system. And I already told you about Elyria. I already told you about Ramada. And so the way a search goes is this. We don't, one, to make a search, you have to identify a reason. You can search, like if in the case of the Burger King robbery, we knew it was a Chevy Suburban, so we could search Chevy Suburban. If we had a license plate number, like a stolen car, we can put it in there. Another advantage of our flock cameras is we've probably 90% of our cars that are stolen out of our city, we've been able to locate a lot quicker. A lot of times before it's changed multiple hands, it allows us to get physical evidence, and that has led to us locating who had taken it. So circling back to the search, you search it, and then there's a period of time. Our data is this: is the picture of the car, the license plate, and the camera and the time that went through. Now our cameras are on the borders of our city, with the exception, and Lowe's are not our cameras. So if somebody, so let's say Mayor Schneider comes in on Brook Park Road on the east end of the city, he enters the city. I have no idea where he goes from there, unless he exits the city and circles back. So it is just an early warning system that bad things are coming into our city. In full disclosure, when we first got Flock, a lot of agencies, hey, share your stuff, and we did. We did, and I gave permission, or my lieutenants did. So we have shared our stuff with 582 agencies, okay, throughout the state and some outside. In Ohio, there's roughly 800 agencies. I want to say of our 500, probably 450 are somewhere outside. I do have the ability to limit our searches to only inside the state agencies, but with reciprocity and if you bear with me, and I know we're rolling on here, it's almost midnight, so I apologize. I'm joking.
Barely.
So recently in our city, you think this is Little Fairview Park, and I don't mean it, sorry about that. This is Little Fairview Park. But the truth is that we've had people from New Jersey come in and make counterfeit bills inside the Ramada using a printer. We had people from Georgia take homeless people from the homeless shelter at 2100 Lakeside, again at the Ramada, and go to our banks in Fairview Park using our residents' address, fake IDs, and do that. We caught them. We've had, no, we didn't have flock for that one. I want to be honest. I want to be transparent. We've had a guy from New York who was part of a credit card skimmer, and he was staying at the Ramada. God, don't stay at the Ramada. So let's go up north to Westgate. We've had multiple cases where we had one guy from New York using a Strongsville residence ID, try to buy $5,000 worth of cell phones at Verizon, and we were able to catch him. We were able to take his car and find out all the other places. There's groups called, like the group called the Felony Lane Gang. What they do is they start out in Florida and they work throughout the country, and they go from business to business, and they steal hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff. In Fairview Park, our big victim, believe it or not, well, it's one is Lowe's because they just walk out, but that's in Rocky River. But Ulta, you'd be surprised. Every bottle is $100 of perfume, and it's nothing for them to walk out with $5,000 of perfume. But they don't just hit Fairview; they go to Westlake, they go to Avon, and what we do is we take the cars, we work with our local agencies, we work with our state agencies, and find out that they not only hit us, but they have done similar crimes in other cities. So I'm a little hesitant. We've had 2 homicides in my career that I've investigated, and again, we did not have flock, but I would really love to have flock. One guy killed his neighbor, and then he goes to Michigan, but then he said he was actually in Michigan at the time when he claims when the fire was set, but actually he was 2 miles away from where her body was. I would have loved to have flock that showed that. We had a guy beat his girlfriend, leave her to die in a bathroom, and he was an over-road trucker, and he ended up going to Dallas. And so people flee the state when they commit felony crimes. And I don't mean to be this, and only because of the date. Today's June 8th. On June 4th was the 7th anniversary of one of our residents who lived in Fairview Village was murdered down in the Metro Parks in the city of Fairview Park. And don't you think Metro Parks would wish they had license plate readers? They now do. Part of those things, they've now put license plate readers in their parks. I can't say I don't make the judgment for them, but that's what it is. So, you'll want to know about searches. When, for instance, with the guy from the high school, when we do a search, we can limit the search. Like I can make it into like a 10-mile radius, whatever. But say I think somebody's gone out of the state, I can do a nationwide search. Or if and every time one of our officers searched somebody, like the guy from the high school, every time an officer searched it, there's 20 of us on the road. Every time they search to see where he was at, that means 20 searches on that one license plate from our department. So when we are searched from outside agencies and they're doing murder or robbery or stolen vehicle, every time an officer searches, it counts as a search against our system. So
Great.
you want to know how many searches are in a week?
How many?
120,000.
Of our database or total in Flock?
Well, see, it's not searching just Fairview Park. It's
Oh, I see.
searching nationwide. So it's not coming to Fairview Park. It is going from every flock from there, but it still counts against us.
Okay.
I want to be transparent. I want to be honest.
Nice report, Chief.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Bring it on. Let's hear it.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the chief? That was a great explanation.
yeah.
Thank you for that context.
Thank you for sending all that data, too.
It's all good. What do you got?
As you know, I had a number of questions, and I believe you were kind enough to copy everyone on this dais on your responses, and I appreciate that. I have nothing further. I am very appreciative of how open, thorough, and transparent you've been, and I'll look forward to continuing to receive information back from you as you receive it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Please.
What do you got?
So, do our LSAG readers interact with the embedded software or the web interface that Flock provides?
The LSAG? No. It's a separate database. That's for the LSAG's for the county. And when they roll them out, for instance, I think I put it out, like the cars, we no longer have those readers on the cars. I think I put that in there. The reason is they've reached end of life, and the county's just not. But the stationary LSAGs are managed through the county, and we have access to them.
Okay, and you said we only get still images. We don't get video footage, we don't get audio, is that right?
Correct.
But the cameras have the capability for that. Is this not a service?
No.
that we subscribe?
You would have to, we ordered the Falcon, so in 2023, when we got it, Council President King, you've been proud of her, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. First thing she brought up was listening devices, and I assured her that I would go and find out. So we have the Falcon cameras. I have photos of them. There's no microphone. We don't have the ability to. We don't. Now they do sell. They do sell those things, but we don't have them.
Okay, because in our contract it says that they do have audio, and
No, it's a blanket contract. They don't have audio.
okay. They also have environmental sensors on them, or do the Falcons not have that?
What's environmental sensors?
I don't know. That's what I was going to ask you about.
The answer is no. I just asked for pictures.
Just for pictures, so no
I mean,
video.
I assume the environmental sensors would be like a shot spotter, right?
I would assume so,
Because all I asked for was
which would mean
pictures.
it has audio.
It doesn't have it. I just asked for
Okay.
pictures.
The wing features,
We don't have the wing feature.
you don't get that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I understand that the OS and the Nova platforms from Flock allow access with Ring owner permission to that system?
We don't have that.
Okay. How do the guardrails work to prevent inquiries for immigration and reproductive purposes?
We blocked it out. They can't do it.
Meaning that if they put in the reason for search stating anything like immigration or reproductive,
Right,
that it won't allow it?
Right.
What if they just put like suspect or investigate or something
Well,
like that?
you know what? Then it's a question of integrity and honesty, isn't it? I mean, you could make up something and make it sound like it's quasi the truth when it really isn't. But the truth is that it's vetted and we audit our things. So I don't know what I have to go what's on face value.
Okay. So.
I'm sorry, if I may, real fast. If there is an issue with integrity, that's something that would be an illegal search, and thus that officer could be penalized, correct? I mean, I know there are other databases that if they're being used without.
So we audit, we do random audits. With leads and Oleg, they do self-auditing, but like with our body cameras and our dash cameras, we do regular audits, and we do it with our searches too. And what it looks for is like for instance, like if you search one, I'm giving you a general example. If you search one license number, okay, but if you are continually searching the same license number over a period of time, then that red flags. And the ones that we found in our officers were missing people that were gone for an extended period of time. And one was a felonious assault that was entered out of Westlake that was known to frequent in our community.
Okay.
Thank you. I apologize for
No,
the
I
interruption.
want to be clear.
So it was the FBI training Houston law enforcement to use vague terms like sus or invest or something like that when they were doing searches.
This is Fairview Park. I have no idea what the FBI in Houston did, ma'am.
Okay. And so when you do these systemic audit lists, not the organizational ones where you're looking to see what's being pulled in-house, but
Yes, ma'am.
inquiries, the 120,000 a day or whatever it was.
Sure. Well, in a week. In a week. Get
Oh,
my-
that's in
get
a
it right,
week.
please. Yes.
Okay, 120,000 in a week.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there ever any invest or sus inquiries or something to that effect, something vague?
I can think of a couple, but I don't. You know, the one that I did, and I actually called Dixon, Tennessee. They did a traffic survey, and I called the guy, and he called me back today. I'm waiting for her to get back. I can let you know. So as far as that goes, but most of it is like a robbery or things like that.
They
But
put
but
specific
again, there's
reasons.
120. I tried to scan them all for suspicious things, but there was no red flags.
Okay.
And again, that's not to say that, but I could not find any.
Why is Right Pat the only federal agency that's allowed to search our data?
I think it was because it was in Ohio, and they have flock cameras outside their things, and they can search ours as well if something happens.
But you could block them.
Absolutely, I can.
Okay. So when this ordinance, when the original ordinance was passed, it only authorized 2 years of flock service.
Yes, ma'am.
Why did we not see another piece of legislation authorizing beyond the 2 years?
The same reason you don't see a thing for TAC, which is our RMS. You don't see it for our PACE, which is our scheduling software. You don't see it for our Urban SDK, which is our traffic software. You don't see it for our, we just got it's software. And it's $12,000 to $15,000 a year. It comes out of our hotel tax, so not a single general fund penny is spent. The hotel tax was established in 1998, and because we do, as I already stated, a lot of our business legal comes out of the hotels, so it doesn't. So the short answer is it is technology, and it is a subscription just like any other.
So once it's approved for...
No, I go to Board of Control, just like every other thing.
Okay. I will just say here that I have communicated with a couple of the council members out in Shaker Heights to ask about their own experiences with this and the problems that they saw out there. They ended up renegotiating their contract with Flock so that they would have to get approval to share the data on a case-by-case basis anytime somebody wanted to make an inquiry. There's nobody that is allowed to just access their data anymore. They have to call and get permission and explain in person why they wanted to do something like that. I did ask for them to send me a copy of their new contract. It hasn't actually been passed. I haven't gotten it yet. But I would like to take a look at that and maybe have another discussion. My concern is that there are allowances in here for Flock to use the data that we collect for their own, what they deem to be an appropriate person.
Yeah, and
reason.
that was actually one of the things that I had addressed in my request to
And,
Chief Shepherd, we're waiting.
and I will
on
forward it to you as soon as I get an answer from him.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind you, this isn't Shaker Heights. We're not 34,000 people. We are not 100 officers, and we were proactive. You didn't have to tell me that there was a search. We took care of it beforehand. So you do whatever you need to do, Councilwoman. I want to do what's best for the community. But I respectfully ask that you look at Fairview Park, not other communities that aren't like us.
I'm also not going to stick my head in the sand and pretend that
I don't.
Fairview
I never
can't
have. I never.
have the same
I never
problems
have. I
that
never
another
would
city
expect it of
can.
you.
Okay.
So I think this is very similar to the school resource officer, that the right next step would be is if there, again, this is an approved by council for the beginning of the program, approved by the Board of the Control for continuation.
Mhm.
If there are changes that we would want to see to the program, I would make a recommendation that council people speak with the chief, speak with the administration, speak with whoever they need to do to formulate a proposal, and then connect with me, as this would end up in my committee, and then I can make a determination as to how and when we would discuss that.
And everybody has a standing invitation. Please come see the program. I want you to see it. We don't, again, I don't think we're all going to agree on this, but I want you to have as much information as you can. And one of the things I respect about you is you do your due diligence, and I expect nothing less. But I would hope that in my 30 years of service as a police officer of this community and 6 years of chief, I don't expect you to give me a total benefit of doubt, but at least recognize that I'm trying to do what's right.
Okay, understood.
Thank you.
May I very briefly?
Please, go right ahead.
The hour's late, so I'm not going to be long. I
That's
do want to
fine.
offer, I have a little unique insight into this since this is my line of work during the day. I want to thank you for all the work you do.
Sure.
I can tell you right now that I'd love to work with you in my day job. You're a great chief. I
Very
appreciate
kind.
everything you're doing. These questions I think we're hearing, and I think a lot of them are legitimate, are not because of our department.
Agreed.
It's because, unfortunately, other parts of our country are very unlawful in how they're handling things. And we want to avoid being involved in that unlawfulness.
May I rebut?
Go ahead, you could go.
Well, first of all, we all share the same thing.
Yes.
We all share the same thing.
Right.
That's why we do try to do as much as we can to make sure that we do the right thing. I also understand that we represent 17,000 people, and whatever decision we make will not everybody will agree, but I try to do, when we make these decisions, try to do what's best for the community and the city. But I appreciate that, and I that's why I'm here,
Yeah.
to answer those questions.
So I'm going to throw a couple of softball questions here for you, and I think I'm going to get Steve involved too, so because he's here so late. Number one, are flock cameras focused only on public roadways?
Yes, well, exception of the Lowe's, but that's private property.
Okay, all right. But it's the parking lot, that sort of thing.
Well, that's theirs, it's not ours.
Okay.
Ours is in our city, on public roads.
Then the other question I have, Mr. Law Director Dever, do we have any concerns about the constitutionality of the use of flock cameras?
No, I don't believe so. These are all on public roadways. This would be like if you had a police officer stationed at coming across the Lorraine Road Bridge, and he was scanning license plates. No problem whatsoever. Just on a side on this is, in my day job as the Rocky River prosecutor, I was the prosecutor that talked with the police about that Panera incident as far as inducing panic and the investigation that they did on that. The benefit of having this technology out there is so enormous as far as the protection of officers. You don't have officers who are going into blind spots. They have the ability to understand whether or not a vehicle is actually wanted and then are prepared for the person that they're going to meet. If you look at the United States Supreme Court case last year, 9-0 opinion, all of the justices agreed that one of the most dangerous activities that a police officer are engaged in is stopping a motorist on the roadway. All of the justices all agreed with that. And the benefit of having that information and not putting officers in a blind spot to be able to assess the situation and then go forward to maintain the peace and enforce the law, that's a good thing. When you talk about, I don't want to take any more time on this, the school safety resource officer. I prosecuted a case last year in Rocky River for a disruptive parent coming to the school who had a child special needs, and it got out of hand, and there was a confrontation, and there was an argument and everything like that, required it to have a trial in the Rocky River court. Had there been the school safety officer there that day, part of his job would be to diffuse that kind of confrontation and take that tension down. It makes those children feel safe that they have somebody within the school that's looking out for them and also has that relationship with them. So when you look at what are the benefits to society for having police in those positions and in those specific places where people need to feel safe, where there is the tension and the anxiety, I'm all supportive as far as on the prosecution end of having the police involved in the schools, and I'm very supportive of the flock camera system as far as crime fighting and using that going forward. I'm glad that Westgate is getting the flock cameras. I wish that they had flock cameras over there at the Home Depot. I wish they had flock cameras at the Giant Eagle. You would be able to reduce the amount of crime because you would have the ability to solve cases by identifying these actors that are going around and perpetrating crimes. So, thank you.
I agree, Steve. Good job. That's it from me.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions for the chief on flock?
Could I just say one thing?
Yep.
I want to sincerely thank each and every one of you for giving me the time and the courtesy to do it. I appreciate you, Councilwoman, man. I know you're doing your job, and again, please recognize I'm trying to do mine the best of my ability. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Chief, was there anything else you wanted to discuss with us?
No, appreciate your support. Appreciate, it's a privilege to be your chief. I got teased by Director Hitch there because I commented how much what a privilege it is to work for you guys, but it is an incredible honor to work for you, so thank you. Yeah, my nose is brown.
Director Hitch, perhaps something to listen to. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks for staying so late.
Yes. Any other questions for Police Chief Shepard while he is here? No? Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Chief, for being here this evening, for staying this late. Hopefully you can get some sleep given that.
Thank you for being here late, doing your job.
Yeah, thank you.
So that being said, I think to summarize, we discussed flock cameras and school resource officer. Being that these are two previously litigated programs, we would ask that if anyone has any recommendations for changes, that they bring those to me after further discussion with any stakeholders involved. And then I can talk about how we would discuss those in the fall in this committee. And that being said, I would like to make a motion to remove police updates from committee.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Pat?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Troy? Yes. Bridget?
Yes.
Sarah? Yes. Rick?
Yes.
And Kim?
Yes.
Okay, let me make that note. Passes 7-0. Motion passes 7-0 to remove it from committee. And local government and community services concludes at 10:31 p.m. Like the Energizer Bunny, we
All
just
right.
keep going.
Thank you. Let's do a lightning round, boards and commission reports. Pat?
I have nothing.
Bill?
Thank you, Council President. The Board of Control met this morning, June 8th, 2026, at 10 a.m. in the Fairview Park Committee Room, 2nd floor of City Hall. All members of the board were present. Also present was Miss Kaylin Fitzpatrick, Service and Development Department Support Specialist. 8 items were discussed. Item 1, Development Department is requesting $499,950 for the 2026 SUR grant. Kaylin stated receiving one bid. Director Hitch stated the SUR work will last 30 to 50 years. He further stated every SUR is different. Both SURs will be checked. Motion to pay $499,950 to United Survey LLC from the Sanitary SUR Fund. 5110 was approved 5-0. Item 2, Development Department is requesting $16,480 for the construction administration for the general service contract. Ms. Fitzpatrick stated this is for both the sanitary and storm sewers. Motion to pay $16,483 to Manick and Smith from the Sanitary Sewer Fund 5110 was approved 5-0. Item 3, Mayor's Office requesting $17,632.96, adding $1,205 for installation of a new finance camera to open purchase order of $16,427.96. All members of the board received an email from Henry Chasky, Executive Assistant to the Mayor, explaining the new location. Mayor spoke stating the camera will cover the entire hallway. Motion to pay $17,632.96 to American Safe and Vault from the Permanent Improvement Fund 260 was approved 5-0. Item 4, Recreation Department requesting $13,010, adding $980 for installation of communication signboard to open purchase order of $12,030. Director Kemp stated this is for the playground at Boken Park. Motion to pay $13,010 to Signorama North Olmsted from the General Fund 100 and Recreation Fund 230 was approved 5-0. Item 5, Recreation Department is requesting $10,500 for the installation of adult changing table. Director Kemp stated this is a necessity. The changing table was donated, so the walls have to be reinforced and the area will be located by the pool. Motion to pay $10,500 to RFC Contracting from the Recreation Fund 230 was approved 5-0. Item 6, Recreation Department is requesting $26,738.24 for wireless connect to pool deck. Director Kemp stated being part of Simway would take care of all reports. Considerable discussion pertaining to this request with Directors Dever and Hitch voting no on many points in the discussion. Motion to pay $26,738.24 to Simway for the Recreation Fund 230 was approved 3-0. Item 7, Recreation Department is requesting $19,560 for double door replacement for Aquatic Center. Director Kemp stated this was not in the original contract. These doors are between the restrooms. The doors act as emergency exit doors. Motion to pay $19,560 to Carol Glass for the Recreation Fund 230 was approved 5-0. Item 8, Service Department is requesting $7,280, adding $4,500 for repairs to city garage doors to open purchase order of $2,780. Director Hitch stated doors have to be replaced. Motion to pay $7,280 to Advanced Door from the General Fund 100 and Recreation Fund 230 was approved 5-0. This completes my report.
Excellent, thank you. Anything for boards and commission reports, Troy?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Sarah?
No, thank you.
Rick?
No, ma'am.
Kim?
Nothing tonight?
Anything for roundtable? Pat?
No.
Phil?
A lot of information was discussed this evening, and it's cold in his chambers. Thank you.
Troy?
Thank you, Mr. Obvious. Nothing tonight, thank you.
Sarah?
No, thank you.
Okay, Rick?
No.
Kim?
No.
All right. Then tonight's meeting is now adjourned.